All right, we might get started. So good evening, everyone. Welcome, Madam Mayor, Council members, and representatives from the Cohen Group. Tonight, I understand we're going to receive a presentation, particularly around the Burnside Village development variations that have been considered by SCAP, and there's an opportunity to share that with Council. With the We might just wait till Councillor Jones mutes himself while he sits down. Sorry for the reasonably short presentation time. So we'll have a presentation, and that will allow presentation about 20 minutes, and then allowing time for questions at the end. So without further ado, I might hand over to you, Greg, to direct us through this one.
Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you, Lady Mayor, councillors, and particularly also Chris, who I've had the opportunity working with on a couple of occasions. And also thank you very much for the opportunity to provide a brief presentation to your City of Burnside tonight with regard to the Burnside Village project and the current variation application. My name is Greg Downer. I'm the CEO of the Cohen Group, and with me tonight is a number of representatives from our project team who will be presenting tonight, more particularly Brenton Berman as project planner with myself, and there will also be commentary provided toward the end by Andrew Cohen, who represents the Cohen Group and the Cohen family as the owner and developers of Burnside Village. We also have with our project team tonight, if there's a requirement for specific questions to be answered, Richard Hamilton, who was with Titanium Property Investment, part of the development management team for this project, Paul Harrison, who represents Buchan Group, who is our project architect, and James Hayter from Oxygen, who is our landscape architect and urban designer. Our presentation is divided into 5 parts, and we're going to allow for questions at the end. And I'd like to ask you that if you're asking questions at the end, that you identify yourself and the ward that you represent. In terms of our background, what we're going to be covering is the differential between the Burnside Village original approval and what is deemed as the variation, the details, in fact, of the variation itself, the changes to the land management agreement, the details of the public realm improvements proposed for this project, and then what our next steps are. Just a little bit of a background. The Cohen family, as you may well know, has owned and developed the Burnside Village. This year will be its 50th year. And they have a very strong track record in working with the South Australian Government and the City of Burnside. And in my opinion, I believe that they are the market leaders in property development and management through engaging with both international, national and local tenants, which is represented within Burnside Village, which has become the state's premier retail destination by size. To date, we have achieved a development plan consent. This was achieved in April of 2019. It was based on a 10-year master plan, and that was developed and divided into 2 key stages. This was supported by the City of Burnside. That plan involved an investment which was in the order of 350 million for both stages of 6 and 7 over the next 10 years to enable the further development of the centre. Following those initial approvals, we undertook the demolition of existing buildings fronting Greenhill Road, and then unfortunately COVID-19 struck. Whilst this deferred our project, we remain committed to delivering on a world-class retail destination. And opportunistically, the deferment of these works actually allowed us to make further refinement to the project and responding to the changes, particularly in the entertainment industry, and also with regard to responding to changing retailer needs. Our variation application enables us to deliver upon our original project objectives. There is what we're proposing is the refinement of our elevations and our atrium roof treatment, the refinement of the ground and level 1 retail spaces. We're looking at a replacement of the cinemas on the western side of level 2 with a 24-hour gymnasium and with additional food and beverage tenancies. There is also expected to be changes to tenancies on level 2 in the northeastern corner, the deletion of the medical centre on level 3, and also deletion of the stage 7 office tower on the northeastern corner. We're also looking at refinement of the stormwater design, which will require the removal of a significant tree fronting Portrush Road. And then there will be minor changes to the basement car parking designs and ground level loading docks. We believe that these refinements will lead to new benchmarks in sustainable design and obviously open ourselves to international tourism as a destination and creating a world-class asset positioned in South Australia. We also highlight that we intend to continue the DNA of preserving and enhancing the centre's iconic village ambience and maintaining a strong presence of gardens, vine-covered malls, and that beautiful villagey feel. I now would like to hand you over to Brenton Berman, who will just go through the variation application results. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Hope everyone can hear me. We're sharing a computer here because of IT issues, so I hope you don't mind. Just to explain, my name is Brenton Berman. I'm from AECOM. I'm the project planner. I've been working on this project since its original inception, working on the original application and now the variation application as well. I suppose just to highlight that this variation application is very similar to what was previously approved by council, supported by council and approved by the State Commission Assessment Panel back in 2019. The overall form and scale of the building remains the same. It's building out to that section of Green Hill Road that's recently been demolished. However, there are some changes. There's some minor increases in the floor area for stage 6, which is around about 300 square metres. And that's really just moving into an area that was originally proposed to be stage 7. There's also been an overall reduction of the gross leasable floor area for the whole of the project, with the deletion of the stage 7 office tower, which is about nearly 4,500 square metres of floor space is deleted as part of the overall master plan for the project. This stage also results in some minor changes to the basement and ground level car parking. A total of 45 spaces are lost from the previous plan. I'll go through those in a little bit more detail when we get to the plans. Richard, we can go to the next slide. I thought it was probably, oops, there we go. I thought it was probably useful just to go through each of the elevations and the changes that have occurred. The top image on each of these slides is the variation application, and the bottom image is the original approval that has been obtained. This is the elevation for the Green Hill Road, the northern elevation. It's the area of the vacant land fronting onto Green Hill Road, which previously included the lots of tenancies. They've been demolished, as you know, and the intention is to build to the Green Hill Road property frontage. Just to highlight some of the changes there, in the top plan, the variation application, you can see a number of red notations. Those are the changes between what was previously approved and the current application. To highlight some of the changes on the Green Hill Road elevation, on the corner of Portrush Road and Green Hill Road, that's the left-hand corner of the screen, is a new luxury tenancy, which basically wraps around that intersection corner. You'll see later the removal of the office tower and the implications that has on the particular project. There are also alterations to the roof treatment on Green Hill Road. So you can see there's a very large glazed atrium diagrid roof which projects from the site out to the Green Hill Road frontage. It reflects a similar design to the existing roof that's within the atrium area of the Burnside Village Shopping Centre fronting onto Portrush Road at the moment. And then on the right-hand side of that image is a 3-storey development. Again, same as what we were proposing before, except the difference is that previously at the upper level, we were proposing a cinema complex. Now there will be food and beverage fronting onto to Green Hill Road, and then wrapping around in Sydney Street will be the gym and lifestyle facility. We can go to the next slide, Richard. Again, same approach. What you see there is the top slide is the variation application. The bottom image is the original approval, again with the red notation showing the main changes. This is the Portrush Road, the eastern elevation of the site. And again, it's the section fronting onto the vacant land fronting onto Green Hill Road, which is being filled in. But also what we're doing is extending a little bit further down with a new tenancy, which Richard's showing with the pointer, if you can see it there, and also an improved entry coming into the centre from Portrush Road. There's also a slip lane along Portrush Road and an access going into the lowest of the basement car parks, B2, so that actually helps to spread some of the car parking and access arrangements for the site. If we move to the next slide, Richard. This is the Sydney Street western elevation. Again, the top image is the variation application, the bottom image is what was approved previously. Probably the key changes you can see on that image is that you can see the roof treatment, the glazed atrium diagrid roof to the rear of that. That won't be visible from Sydney Street. It's about 50 metres back from the Sydney Street property boundary. The front section of the building fronting onto Green Hill Road is the same height as what was previously proposed, but then the parapet steps down along the Sydney Street frontage by about 5 metres along that section, and that's because we don't need the same box there for the cinema complex to occur, and so we've been able to reduce the height along that section of Sydney Street. There is also additional landscaping along Sydney Street frontage, and the loading dock along Sydney Street, which was proposed, is significantly less in width and area compared with what was shown on the original approval, which helps to minimise some of the conflict issues or the relationship with the adjacent neighbours. So overall, just our comment on the elevations, we think that they've been we had good elevations, but a vast improvement on just the further refinement of those designs and the elevations. It's a modern design. We think it helps to blend the whole centre together. We go to the next slide. Just to pick up the visualisations, we've got a number of visualisations, just these are artist impressions, just to be able to show you what the centre is going to look like. The large image on the screen is the variation proposal. The smaller image in the bottom left-hand corner is the original approval. And this is the corner of Portrush Road and Green Hill Road. I suppose the stark difference here is there is no large office tower proposed or the medical suite at the 3rd floor level that was proposed previously. So you can see the changes, and we're looking for a very much an upmarket tenancy, which is actually going to fit in that particular space. So it's a landmark building on the corner of Green Hill and Portrush Road. Probably go to the next one, Richard. This is the Green Hill Road visualisation. Again, the large image is the variation. The small image in the bottom left-hand corner is the original approval. And as you can see, still the same form and scale of development proposed, but the diagrid roof, which is a feature element, comes forward to the Green Hill Road frontage and helps to actually frame the entrance going into and out of the site itself. Probably enough on that. And the next one that we can go to is the Portrush Road frontage. And as I said, what we've done is we've brought forward one of the components of the Stage 7 development as part of this Stage 6. That's that new gold-looking building fronting onto Portrush Road, which extends to not quite to the Portrush Road property boundary. In front of that is the driveway access going down to the basement car park area. What we've also done is provided a new feature entrance from Portrush Road, so bringing the existing roof treatment further out with a wave treatment of roof, which actually extends out to bring it further out to the street and help to provide some enclosure for people going in and out of the centre. That's the last of the visualisations, is the corner of Greenhill Road and Sydney Street. And again, just highlighting the bottom left-hand corner is the approved plan. So the form and scale in terms of height remains the same for that front section along Greenhill Road. It's just that the design is further improved in terms of its detail and elevational treatment. Instead of the cinema complex at the upper level, we now have the food and beverage along the frontage to Greenhill Road, and then wrapping around in the white section of the parapet on Sydney Street is the gym and lifestyle centre. It's probably worthwhile highlighting on this slide also, it doesn't show the traffic signals which are now on Sydney Street and Greenhill Road. That was a fairly major development that the Cohen Group funded through the Department of Infrastructure and Transport. And I think that's made a significant difference in terms of traffic movement within this particular area, providing better access into and out of the centre and resolving some of the safety concerns that were on Greenhill Road previously. With that, we go quickly to the land management agreement. Next slide, Richard. So, the elected members will be dealing with an item on your full council agenda after this meeting for an amendment to the land management agreement that was previously approved. So to explain, there is a stormwater chamber or easement that goes from Portrush Road through to Sydney Street. It bisects the Burnside Village site. And it basically connects the stormwater system from the eastern side of the city through to the west. As part of the original development application, that stormwater system that exists at the moment is designed for a 1 in 5 year flood. So there are significant concerns about its capacity and its the opportunity to actually deal with flood issues. As part of our original approval application, we proposed to increase the capacity of that stormwater easement or the chamber through to allow it to cope with 1 in 100 year flood levels, and also to help to resolve some of the flooding on the rest of the site. As part of that process, we had the land management agreement approved back in January 2020. However, with the discussions with the Commissioner of Highways, the original intention was to have a detention chamber, a water detention chamber within the Portrush Road Road Reserve, which would feed into the site and then connect into the easement. Unfortunately, because of the Commissioner of Highways requirements that chamber has to be on Burnside Village land, we were required to do a redesign, which has resulted in the chamber now being located within the site of the Burnside Village, and that has unfortunately meant that we've had to lose a significant tree that sits on the Portrush Road frontage at the moment. There is no other choice for that because of the connections to the existing stormwater system to the east of the site on the other side of Portrush Road. So that's a very quick overview of
just quickly. Councillor Davey, if we can just hold your question for another 5 minutes, I'm going to have all the questions come at the end. Just back to you. Thanks.
All right, thank you. I will now hand over to Greg to talk about public realm.
Thank you very much. In terms of public realm interface, we've undertaken a detailed design process, which has resulted in further refinement around the public areas that interface with Burnside Village. We have intention to work closely with the City of Burnside and DIT in finalising the landscaping and footpath treatment around the centre, but we'd like to just present to you tonight an understanding of the work that we've been doing. This will be dealt with as a separate matter outside of this variation application. And these images I'm about to go through shows those proposed landscaping and footpath treatment for each of the main road frontages. So the first is with regard to Green Hill Road. You will note that in terms of the elevation, we've endeavoured to replicate that in identifying it in relationship to the landscaping plan. You should note that the landscaping area that is to be developed is actually reserved as a future road widening. So we may ultimately see the demise of a number of those areas as a consequence of DIT requirements. But what's been proposed there was a number of plantings along that roadway with pavement treatment, and more particularly, we have also set down area there for bus stop access and also drop off and pick up. That would be particularly useful for those who may have disabilities or elderly, so they have direct access into Burnside Village. In terms of Sydney Street, for Sydney Street, there is an intention to increase the level of vegetation from the intersection of Green Hill Road and Sydney Street and create a necklace of trees along that road, following consistency in terms of the current tree species as we see there at the present time. You might be aware that one of our representatives tonight, Richard Hamilton, in fact, personally door knocked along Sydney Street a number of years ago to ensure that the residents were well aware of the project that was intended and to understand the feedback, and part of that feedback has been interpreted in terms of these landscape plans. In terms of Portrush Road, we have here a slip lane that will be moving down into the basement too. As a consequence of that, we're needing to do a revision of the landscape treatment along this road. And you can see on the left of the screen, the beginning of the replacement of plantings along Portrush Road there in terms of the same types of species as we've had previously. Thank you.
How many slides you got left, Greg?
Next steps.
Awesome.
Last one.
Well done.
Timely. So the next steps, which we're highlighting, is that we're looking towards obtaining development approval for the variation application, more particularly for you for consideration tonight, council resolution on the changes to the land management agreement. And then there is the ongoing works that we intend to have involved with the City of Burnside, the finalisation of the construction environmental management plan and traffic management plan during the construction phase for stage 6, working closely in collaboration with the City of Burnside, and continuing to work with your council in terms of the public realm interface, and also to provide further briefings to the council prior and during our construction.
Excellent. Thank you, Greg. I'm just very conscious of time. Just as a quick overarching comment before we go back to questions, I do want to take the opportunity to make a note of thanking the Cohen family for continuing their investment in the City of Burnside. It is really appreciated for their commitment. Right, going through my little backlog of questions. I'm just going to call up the chat. Now, the first question was, this is from Councillor Cornish. On Green Hill Road, the elevation, it looks like the entry is halfway between Sydney Street and Portrush, but the pedestrian crossing has moved to Sydney. And consideration, have you considered how people will get in and out, or will they have to walk down Green Hill?
So
who wants to take that one?
Richard, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Chris. Richard, can I refer that one to you, please?
certainly. So in our urban design, we're conscious of the traffic movements that occur from north to south on Green Hill Road. they're not significant, but we are looking to, we've still looked to make Green Hill Road a focal entry. And we positioned it in the middle of this, the streets between Sydney and Portrush, because we do see traffic generation from not only the council buildings diagonally opposite, but also coming from the west side as well. So to accommodate people from either direction, we've kept the entry in the middle of the site where it fronts Green Hill Road.
Cool, thank you. Next question from Councillor Henschke. What was the original GLA area percentage decrease in GLA?
I can take that as well. So the original increase from this or as a consequence of this variation, if we just think of stage 6, the 300 metres represent about 1.5%. If we are thinking of the whole master plan stages 6 and 7 and the removal of the office levels on corner of Portrush and Green Hill, which equate to about 4,500 metres over the on completion area of about 55,000 metres, that's about 8%.
Cool, no, thank you for that. There was a follow-up question about criteria for variation on your application, but I think you've clarified that this is a variation you're seeking to your original application. So it's a correct comment, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, for sure. Right.
Chris, I'm happy to get Brenton Berman to take that one on. We're now sharing screens. Is it a variation to the DA, or are we required to submit a new DA?
So I can just quickly jump in there. A variation to a development application is still a new development application, but it's varying what was previously approved. The question that the State Commission Assessment Panel has to make is, to what level are the changes in comparison with the original? They have come to the conclusion that the changes are minor in nature, that the overall form and scale of the building remains unchanged, the overall uses remain unchanged, the overall floor area actually reduces for the overall development. The car parking and access arrangements remain unchanged to any great extent. So the SCAP has basically made that call that they'll be dealing with this as a variation to the original application.
Cool, thank you. Next question from Councillor Hughes. The visualisation on the Portrush Road angle shows parking at street level. Is this the case? Previously, there was only below ground parking.
So I might have a quick go at that, and Richard might be able to assist, or Paul.
I can take that. That's fine. What I think the councillor is referring to is that on completion of the whole master plan, being stages 6 and 7, essentially all the parking was underground. But at the completion of stage 6, and stage 6 really just developing the northern end of the site, that existing at-grade car parking is retained. So what you're seeing now is the completion of stage 6 in those images. And so there's a retention of that at-grade parking that's there today, fronting Portrush Road. There's been 36 of those spaces removed. And you might recall we showed a new building just to the right or to the north of the Portrush Road pedestrian entrance into the building. That's taken up 36 spaces, but otherwise the at-grade parking is retained.
Cool, thank you for that. Next question is from Councillor Lemon. And the question is, does the landmark building have a reflective finish? Will the dome have, and will it have 24-hour lighting?
Paul Harrison from Buckham, would you like to take that one on notice, please?
Cool.
Sure.
They're two questions, by the way.
Sorry, Councillor Lemon, I've butchered your question. Do you want to ask it? You want to ask it if you've got it there?
So I'm just wondering about the landmark building at the front, because from the drawing, it looked like it would be very reflective. Is that the case?
No, it won't be. There's certain reflective parameters that you need to abide by.
Oh, good.
So
excellent. I've just had visions of myself driving into the sunset and being blinded.
No.
And the other question was about the dome, because the dome looks like it's a glass dome sort of mysteriously in the distance. Well, is it lit from inside? And if it is, is that 24-hour a day lighting?
So it will be a glass dome, and it'll be a really key feature element. And it will have lighting. It'll have daytime mode, nighttime mode, lighting. So that'll cater for any of the potential or any of the issues you feel that may be arising.
Is it 24 hours though, or does the lighting go off when the centre closes down?
So from an operational point of view, the centre's not trading at 24 hours, and the lighting, our operational plan needs to be refined, but it's intended that we would only be running the lighting to meet the operational hours of the centre. There would be some security lighting, of course.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Turnbull, are there less trees in the variation?
James Hayter, you're online. Would you like to take that question, please?
Yeah, sure. No, they're the same number. So there are 87 trees existing at the moment. After the completion of the stage 6 and the stage 7 work, subject to council agreeing, there'll be the same number of trees exactly.
Brilliant, thank you. Councillor Henschke, are the paths designed for pedestrians and cyclists?
Short answer is yes, but that James might be able to comment on that.
Yeah, look, what we're proposing, and again, this is subject to DID approval along Greenhill and Portrush and council's approval, is that as part of the works, as part of the stage 6 works, we're intending to redevelop the verge out to the curb line. And again, subject to council agreeing to these works. And part of those works will be to put new footpaths in. At the moment, the footpaths are a bit bumpy and a bit narrow, and they'll be improved in terms of the streetscapes along the stage 6. And then as part of stage 7, the intention is to continue those works along Portrush to Cator, along Sydney to Cator, and then to look at redevelopment of the verge on the village's side along Cator. So it goes right round the stage 6, stage 7 developments.
Excellent. Just conscious of time. Councillor Davey, would you like to ask your question? You just need to unmute yourself there, Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Thanks very much for coming along to clarify these issues for us. I've got a few. I couldn't work the chat thing, sorry. Is there to be no cinemas at all in the new development? And two...
We'll deal with the first one first.
Yes.
I'll get Greg Downer to comment there. Thank you.
Thank you. No, there will not be cinemas. There will not be cinemas in this new proposed development. This is as a consequence of the change in the entertainment industry, and we're looking more directed towards lifestyle. So this is why we're focusing on a 24-hour gym.
Next one, Jane.
Thank you. And the other is the changes look a bit monolithic to me. That the previous development approval seemed to have a lot more variations and changes of structure and a lot more green walls and greenery. It just seems quite monolithic in its presentation to the streets. And then finally, the tree removal, I find that very disappointing. It's a wonderful, great old sugar river red gum. Are you prepared to make a donation to our open space fund to compensate for that in some way? Thanks.
Councillor, thank you. Would you like to deal with the architectural element first, Paul Harrison and James? And then I'll take Councillor Davies' question on the removal of the tree and her question on the donation.
So regarding the building form, it's still very much similar to the previous scheme, especially if we're talking about the Greenhill Road, where it was broken up to represent itself as 4 separate built elements, entry points centered in the middle and 2 laneway entry points either side of those. So they do read separately. And then on the corner, the corner itself on Portrush Road and Greenhill Road, there was a significant built form sitting on there, and that's now retracted back in terms we don't have that building over the top of us. And then on Sydney Street, the actual built form is articulated a bit more than what it is on Sydney Street, where before Sydney Street was a very consistent parapet line and building facade, whereas now we've got a different parapet heights, and we've also got a more broader form of articulation across that facade.
James, is there anything that you'd like to add to that before I answer the final question?
Yeah, sure. Just to chip in to say that we are exploring the option of putting a green wall, a trellis and climber on Sydney Street as part of that facade. They don't show in the elevations, but it's being, we're technically working it out. We've managed to get a strip of land, natural ground at the bottom of the facade that'll allow that to happen. We're also looking at it on Portrush, although the opportunity for having a green wall there is somewhat limited. Sydney, we're fairly certain we can get that in. Portrush, we're trying, and we'll see how we go.
Thank you. Chris, I'll just answer the final Councillor Davies question. We won't be making a contribution to your fund, but what I can tell you and advise you is that we've actually propagated from seed about 40 saplings, which are currently sitting along the fence line on the stage 6 footprint. And that is essentially a regeneration of the original gum tree seed. And we're very happy to donate those saplings back to the city. And in fact, there are other requests that we're getting from the community to keep the saplings and to take possession of the saplings and grow them into mature trees. So if you're happy with that, I'd be happy to run a couple around to your depot anytime you like.
We'll pick that conversation up at another day. What I'm going to do, I've got a number of questions on the screen. I'm going to take them on notice and pass them over to Greg so he can give us a bit of a response, and I'll share that with elected members, because I'm just conscious we're coming to the council meeting. But I have got one last question from Councillor Carbone on the screen. Just wants to ask that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Question to the panel. The biggest issue that I deal with around the Burnside Village area from a resident's point of view is by far and large parking. And, you know, at the moment they say it's bad. And they're certainly wary of any increase in development because they see that as just getting worse. I know Richard and I have had countless conversations about this, but I just thought I'd bring it to your attention for any potential commentary. I do have one more quick question at the end, but if you wanted to just address those concerns.
Let's take that one, Greg.
Actually, Brenton from the Transport.
Well, I suppose just very quickly, it's Brenton Berman here. In terms of car parking, we are well and truly ahead of the car parking numbers that are expected by the planning code, but that doesn't mean that that's the best outcome. And the Cohen Group has prided itself in providing the best available car parking for the customers coming to the site. The intention is that this is 2 multi-deck car parks, basement car parks, being extending the existing car parks. There's a lot of car parks that are being proposed. I have to go digging the numbers up, but the intention is to link it into the existing car park to ensure that there's a good spread of people coming into and out of the site from different locations, and also to continue on with the availability of car parking spaces through the lighting system, which is one of the few shopping centres which actually has that sort of facility. The car parking spaces are also designed so that they meet or exceed the Australian standards because of the type of vehicles coming to and from the site, larger vehicles. And I think that the Cohen Group will continue to work with the City of Burnside to improve car parking, monitor car parking around the area and try to manage the car parking. So probably that's the best we can do at this point in time, but certainly the intention is there will be a lot of car parking provided as part of this development.
And your second question, Councillor?
It's a bit of a cheeky one, but I have to ask, and I hope you'll forgive me, but once the development's finished, will the Christmas parking policy still be enforced?
Did you say the Christmas parking policy? Is that the question?
Yes.
Referring to no staff permitted to park on site during Christmas trade?
Yes.
So this is an operational question for the running of the centre. Greg, you might like to comment, but I'll just throw in that it is critical that during peak trading times, because we are a centre offering free undercover parking and have maintained that ever since we created Burnside Village, that staff cannot be able to park during Christmas trade. The retailers depend on the success of their stores. We cannot disadvantage our customers and have staff parking there all day. We are lucky that there have been some changes in deregulated trading hours, which permit centres like ours, as they are across the state, to trade longer, and that helps take the heat off the peak times. Greg, is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Well, only to say that obviously in peak times, there is the opportunity for those staff to take other forms of transport to this location. They're well versed in advance, but clearly for the benefit of the retailer's livelihood, and more particularly, as you'd appreciate over the last 2 years, it's imperative that we support our retailers here at Burnside Village.
All right, thank you, everyone. I'm conscious we are quickly running out of time. So I thank you again to Greg, the team and the Cohen family for the presentation this evening. So on behalf of the Mayor and councillors, I think we wish you all the best with the development, and we will be having the conversations on the way, as you alluded to. So thank you again. And I said we will collate the questions that I've got on the screen, and we'll forward them through, and we'll work out how to communicate those. Thank you, everyone, and I'll see you in about 5 minutes' time for a council meeting.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
And thank you. To
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of Burnside Council of the 8th of February 2022, opening at 7:01 p.m. As you can see, we are meeting online to protect our staff and our community. So please bear with us as we work through this agenda, which has several motions brought forward for debate that were left from the last meeting. There'll be one deputation, but no public question time tonight. Please remain seated and silent for the acknowledgements. We acknowledge the land that we meet on today is the traditional land of the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the original custodians of the Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important to the Kaurna people today. We also pay respect to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting and attending from other areas of South Australia and Australia. On behalf of the City of Burnside, I gratefully acknowledge and pay respect to those who have sacrificed their lives for this country and its people. Finally, we seek understanding and guidance in our debate as we make decisions that will impact on the lives of all who reside, study, work in, or visit the City of Burnside. Grant us wisdom as we serve our community. Please be patient and respectful of each other, especially with these operational conditions tonight. It is important that all views of the elected members are heard before any decisions are made, and that you address the Mayor and other councillors appropriately. We will slow down the voting so that I can announce the numbers for and against each motion, since this cannot be seen by those watching from home. And if you leave your seat or you move off screen, your time absent will be logged. As we did last meeting, please use your electronic raised hand if you wish to speak. And I will ask you in turn to turn on your microphone and speak. And please remember to turn it off when you're finished. The chat is there to call attention to the presiding member or to indicate any concerns with audio or video problems. I think I've covered, just a reminder to turn off your mobile phones so that they don't go off during the meeting. We don't have a public gallery except for those who are watching from home, of course, and I welcome them to tonight's meeting. I have no apologies. I have no leave of absence. Is there anyone who wishes to declare interest? As this is a reminder. Councillor Carbone.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I'd like to declare a conflict of interest for item 15.1 because I am named in the report and I will be leaving the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Carbone. Right, I seek a mover for the minutes of the last council meeting. Councillor Carbone, seconded by Councillor Turnbull. All those in favour? Waiting on one. Right, those against? So that was 11-1.
Just for clarity, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Councillor Turnbull, can I just clarify which, was it 11-1 or?
No, it was me. I can't raise or lower my hand. It won't allow me.
Very good.
Just doing it now.
It was unanimous, Madam Mayor.
Okay, it was unanimous. Apologies to those at home. I'm having to look at the machine here to read it. So
that's all good.
All right, adjourned business. We need to move now to the adjourned business, which was deferred from the meeting of the 27th of January. And the two motions from that have been withdrawn. And one of them appears modified later on in the meeting. 9.1 is the first motion.
Worship.
Councillor Piggott, I think you wish to have something to say at this point.
Yes, sorry, Madam Mayor. Can I just clarify the deputations? I guess they are.
Sorry. Oh, that's not in my space. We've got a deputation.
If I may, Madam Mayor, just to assist you there, the adjourned business was declared by council to be the first business.
First item, it was too. Yeah.
Deputation presentations are scheduled for item 10, but it's obviously at council's discretion how they wish to handle those.
Could we move perhaps that the deputations happen ahead of any debates? Could I move so?
You seconding that, Councillor Davis? Your hand is up.
Yeah.
All right, those in favour? Yes, Mayor Monso? We don't have everybody online. Well, there are those against. Hang on, I've got the numbers on. What was that?
It's carried, Madam Mayor.
8-4. So that was 8-4. 8-4 and 4 against. Right, so the deputations we will hear now. There is only one deputation, and that deputation is from Andrew. Sorry, I haven't got the name written down in front of me. Denyer, sorry, Andrew Denyer.
Hold on, is that the case?
Why is Henry so
Madam Mayor, I think Councillor Davis might just want to be clarifying the deputations this evening. So I believe
my understanding that's not true, Your Worship.
I don't lie. We had two requests for deputations. One I accepted and one I denied. The first one is a person we've not heard from before. The second one was from a person we had heard from at the last meeting, even though she said that she was reading somebody else's deputation. That opportunity was provided to that person to either present an email to us or to do the deputation. We heard nothing back. So therefore, I'm going to stick to my original decision, and that is we were not going to hear anybody who we had already heard from in the previous meeting.
When you made that decision, Your Worship,
that is my right.
Can you please inform the chamber how you considered the community access, inclusion and participation policy, given the specific circumstances around the person, the reason why they couldn't read their deputation themselves? Did you consider that policy?
I did, but the deputation does not require just a reading. That also requires or provides opportunities for questions and answers. And those questions and answers would not be going to the person who is reading the deputation. So I think that's it. I have that floor.
I'm happy to move that all deputations that have been received be heard.
Sorry, I've made a decision on this and that person was being informed that they're not deputations.
I'd like to move a motion that all deputations received be heard. And I would certainly, and while you can't go into the detail, but I would certainly refer the council to our community access, inclusion and participation policy.
I seek a seconder. There is no seconder, so that motion lapsed.
Hang on, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, wait a minute.
I believe either Councillor Henschke or Councillor Davey or Councillor Lemon maybe.
Sorry, Councillor Henschke, I think your hand is up first. So you wish to second that? All right. Does anyone wish to speak now? Is this a process one, or do they? I need some advice from
sorry, Madam Mayor.
Governance on this one.
Why?
Is this a straight vote, or do people get the right to speak?
It's probably a motion without notice, isn't it?
Oh.
We've never had this happen before.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I'd put it to the vote.
I will put it to the vote.
Can I?
Oh, sorry, Martin.
Apologies for interrupting. Through the mayor,
Yes.
the elected members are allowed to speak if they wish to do so before taking the vote. Thank you.
All right, but is it required that the mover speaks, the seconder speaks, or just anyone can speak? That's what I was trying to get at before.
Yeah, through the mayor, it's the same as a usual motion without notice, mayor, so they can speak if they wish to.
All right.
Normal debate rules apply.
Normal debate. All right, Councillor Davis, you wish to speak?
To sum up, you mean?
Oh, well, I guess you have already moved the motion and spoken.
I'll sum up if I can.
Well, I need to find out first of all, Councillor Henschke, did you wish to speak? You seconded the motion.
Madam Mayor, yes, thank you. Yes, I wish to speak now, Madam Mayor, or do I wait?
Oh, it's now.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Davis that we have a policy, and I wish we follow. I'd like to follow the policy. It appears that the policy is relevant for deputations. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes? Councillor Davey, you wish to speak? Unmute, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I need to endorse the uncertainty of if someone wasn't able to present a deputation because of illness or disability, and or for another reason, and Ms. Hallett made a deputation on their behalf and now wants to make her own. I think that's a reasonable proposition and only fair, especially under our policy that's been raised.
Anyone else who wishes to speak? Then I shall go back to Councillor Davis.
Yeah, I think it is really important that we consider the policies that we have in place and not abandon them. I think obviously I'm not going to go into it at this, but this particular resident has every right to voice their opinion. They might not be able to do that. They might have to do that through somebody else. So I think that this is something we should do as an inclusive council.
All right, then I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Is that 6-all?
6-all.
All right, then I'll use my casting vote, and the answer is still that I'm not going to accept it because a policy decision I made. I was not going to hear anyone who had spoken at the previous meeting.
I'd like to call for a division.
Division's fine. Okay, those who are in support of the motion, please raise your hands. That's Councillor Hubel, Lemon, Davey, Cornish. We've now got 7, have we? No. Cornish, Davis and Henschke. Those against?
Oh, When are we supposed to raise and lower our hands?
You've already done it, Jane. Councillor Davey.
So just for
I voted for the full. I've written down sorry, Councillor Jones, sorry, I didn't read out the names, did I, for the division? And I need to do that. So I have to go back, sorry, and get those who voted for, because I didn't read out the names. So could you clear your hands and then we'll start again. Those for the motion: Councillor Lemon, Councillor Henschke, Councillor Davey, Councillor Cornish, Councillor Piggott and Councillor Davis.
We'll just give the minute taker a second.
Yep.
So lower our hands.
And now lower your hands, please. And those who are against, please raise your hands. Councillor Jones, Councillor Turnbull, Councillor Carbone, Councillor Hughes, Councillor Dawes and Councillor Hubel. And I have provided my decision on the casting vote. Right, now we have the deputation from Mr. Andrew Denyer. As soon as he is able to log on.
Yes, I'm here if you can hear me.
Yes, thank you. We can hear you, Mr. Denyer. You just need to state your name and the suburb that you live in, and then you commence. You have 5 minutes with our warning bell at 4 minutes, and the opportunity straight after to answer any questions from the elected member, from the council members.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. My name is Andrew Denyer and I live in Kensington Gardens. Madam Mayor, councillors and administrators, my name is Andrew Denyer and I have lived on West Terrace, Kensington Gardens since 2002 and have lived in the Burnside council area for a total of about 50 years. I am opposed to the feasibility study for a permanent wheel park to be built in Kensington Gardens for the following reasons. Firstly, after reading the feasibility study for a wheel park to be located at Newland Park Reserve, it is apparent that noise and disturbance to nearby residents is a major issue of concern. In the Newland Park study, the acoustic report prepared by Sonos based their report on the noise observations that were taken on a single day, the 5th of October 2021. On this day, Sonos took noise measurements at Newland Park and for comparison, they also took noise readings at representative locations at the Wheel Park on Avenue Road, Cumberland Park. From their observations on this one day, the Sonos report predicted that the noise level of a wheel park at Newland Park during the day would exceed the noise goals by 15 decibels for nearby residents. Since the Avenue Road wheel park is a fairly small and simple wheel park of approximately 350 square metres, the noise levels measured in the Sonos report are potentially understated and may not be comparable to the noise levels from a larger wheel park with more advanced features. It is unclear from the Sonos report as to whether adjusted or average sound levels were used to predict this sound level. It is necessary to know what the maximum sound levels are expected to be over a much longer period of time. A few hours on one particular day is not an adequate predictor of real-life wheel park sound levels. The right questions need to be asked at the onset of a project to get the right answers and good solutions. For the noise study to be relevant, I suggest that it is the maximum sound levels that need to be investigated, as it is the maximum sound levels that are of much greater concern to residents. Occasional louder noises are far more disturbing than a relatively stable level of moderate noise. Please bear in mind that the decibel scale used for measuring noise is a logarithmic scale. That means a 70 decibel noise is 10 times louder than a 60 decibel noise. The Sonos report for Newland Park did not even state or contemplate how the noise goals might be exceeded at night should the wheel park be used enthusiastically after dark. It would not be unreasonable to expect a wheel park to generate noise peaks of 70 or 80 decibels or even greater, given that the normal voice level is between 60 and 70 decibels, a raised voice is between 65 and 70 decibels, and a loud voice is between 75 and 80 decibels, and a shouting voice is above 85 decibels. I suspect the noise of a skateboard grinding on a rail and then the impact of a noise of a skateboard when it comes off a rail and lands on a hard surface could easily be 80 or 90 decibels when compared to other items on a typical noise level table. Modern portable portable music players can easily pump out music at over 100 decibels. While sound levels do decrease with distance, the decrease of the sound level is relatively small. For every doubling of distance, the sound level reduces by 6 decibels. That is, by moving from 10 metres to 20 metres away from a sound source, the sound level is reduced by 6 decibels. But to achieve the next 6 decibels of reduction in sound level means moving from 20 metres to 40 metres, and then you need to move from 40 to 80 metres for a further 6 decibel reduction of the sound level. This means that if you have an 80 decibel noise level at 10 metres from the sound source, you need to move to over 80 metres away before the sound level would be below 62 decibels. And at 160 metres, the sound level will still be 56 decibels. Noise is also very hard to contain. As Sonna stated on page 6 of their Newland Park site report, extensive, and I'm quoting, extensive acoustic barriers will be required around the skate park. The height, extent and construction of these barriers may not be practical when considering factors other than acoustics. From my knowledge of the already heavily developed and used Kensington Gardens Reserve, it would appear that there is no obvious area within Kensington Gardens Reserve to locate a wheel park that could satisfy the requirements to be far enough away from residents to satisfy the noise criteria. The next point that I would like to make is that the entire area of Kensington Gardens Reserve and the surrounding streets are listed as a local heritage area. Local heritage areas are defined as localities that comprise a unified. Is that 4 minutes or 5 minutes?
That's 5 minutes time. You'll probably be able to answer these, give you additional information via some questions that may be asked. So I'll seek councillors who wish to ask you. Councillor Davis?
Yeah, what was the last thing you were going to say?
My point about the heritage areas was Kensington Gardens is defined as a local heritage area, and a local heritage area is defined as an area of consistent characteristics of identifiable historic, economic and or social theme of recognised importance. And the themes identified for Kensington Gardens Reserve are the 1880 to 1917 Victorian period and the Federation period of 1918 to 1949 post-World War I. And my comment was going to be as to whether a wheel park is compatible with this theme as identified by the council's own heritage documents.
Councillor Henschke?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A question, thank you for Mr. Denyer. Thank you for raising the significance of this reserve as a heritage area. My question is, with that criteria, the cricket club and the tennis club, would they be regarded also in the context of heritage, seeing that they were established in the Federation period, I believe?
I'm not really sure if I'm qualified to answer that question.
Further questions of this, Councillor Piggott?
Thanks for coming in, or not coming in, actually. Thank you for the deputation. You made reference to how busy or how much is happening in the Kensington Gardens Reserve. I was just wondering whether you could share with council, given you're a close neighbour, what is your experience of just how busy Kensington Gardens Reserve is currently?
On the whole, Kensington Gardens is quite busy, particularly when there's other sporting events going on. When there's a cricket games or rugby games, tennis in progress. The playground is very popular. The open spaces are very popular for families to come and have picnics. So, many times on many weekends, there is already a lot of activity in the park. And at times when the park is busy, car parking can be an issue.
questions. I don't see any more hands. All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Denyer, for coming in and doing your deputation.
Thank you.
Right. Now we need to, that was the last deputation. With no petitions, we've got to go back now to 9.1, motion on notice. Councillor Piggott, you wish to seek leave to speak?
I do, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'm sorry to keep interrupting. Look, I'd like to make a motion that perhaps my motion on notice is debated first. This is highly unusual, irregular. I understand that. However, it goes in a bit of a different direction to all the others, and so I feel it's specifically, rather than potentially doing 5 feasibility studies based on the other motions, it's actually to address this issue without numerous feasibility studies. And I just wonder whether you would allow me to go first, or at least would council allow me to go first in regard to the motions, because obviously if it was the view of council to go that way, it then makes some of the others at least not relevant.
So you're wishing to move that, Councillor Piggott?
Yes, please.
Right, and is that a seconder, Councillor Davis? So do you wish to speak?
I reserve my right.
Right, Councillor Davey, you wish to speak? You need to unmute.
Thank you. Yes, as one of those who has a motion on notice at 9.2, I recognise Councillor Piggott was good enough to circulate us an email today to identify his concerns, and I think it would be useful for us to consider debating the criteria, a whole lot of the criteria that we really need to consider for the wheel park in Burnside. So I support us bringing it on.
Madam Mayor,
yes.
I think we may have a point of order from Councillor Turnbull.
Oh, I thought she was putting her hand up to speak.
Right, well, I put it up because we're looking at chat. My point of order is, why should a late entry into this be accepted? It's a late thought bubble, be accommodated, and it's disrespectful to the people who've put in a lot of time organising the other motion on notices. So I would say it's not right to let this one go.
Unfortunately, Councillor Turnbull, please correct me, Mr. Cooper, if I'm wrong, but that's not a point of order. Doesn't relate to any specific area of the Act. So you can speak against the motion, and I will allow you to do that if you wish to.
Oh, I did.
Okay, so you have spoken then. All right. The next, I don't have any other hands up. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this? Councillor Hughes.
I'll perhaps just ask a question that Councillor Piggott can answer in his summing up, because it was just a little bit unclear. So he mentioned in what he's intending to move that we would perhaps undertake 2 studies. Obviously that will be debated, but there was no specification on where those studies would be. So I just want to understand, is the process that he's intending we would go through and make that decision and then follow through with all of the other motions and then still do that? It was just a bit unclear, so if he could just make that clear in summing up so I can decide whether to support or not. Thank you.
Councillor Davis, you had your hand up but then you took it down.
Yeah, thank you.
Speak now.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Montoya.
Yeah, maybe I'll take that. I couldn't find, just on that point, I couldn't find what you're referring to. Could you clarify? This is more of a question.
It is showing respect, and it is showing respect to the person, not me, the person. It is respect to the role of the presiding member.
Yeah, so what provision? So I can show respect by saying thank you when you acknowledge me. I can show respect in a number of different ways. I'm just looking for the Local Government Act reference to where I must.
It's the first. It's in the role of the mayor, and perhaps when we've had our workshop on the new behavioural expectations, which hasn't happened yet, that can be explained further. In the meantime, I will accept you being polite.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I support this motion. I do think that when we had the workshop, This whole thing was intended that we would have a workshop, that we would discuss it as council, have a think clearly about what we wanted. Unfortunately, we didn't follow that process, and there was a whole bunch of other motions that came in before we even had a chance to absorb it, and even before that workshop. We never actually landed on a motion like this that Councillor Piggott is proposing, which actually limits and makes it very clear what we're looking at here. Is it 300 square meters or is it 1,000, and what is it? And we as a council should at least have a good understanding of what the criteria is that we're putting forward before we just send it off. And I think what we've seen in past debates is questions to the administration that they haven't really been, it's essentially whatever they decide to come up with, which I think is too broad, and it should be us to narrow that criteria. So that's why I support this motion, and I think it should come first.
Now we go on again. Does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Davey?
Just
unmute yourself, Councillor Davey.
Thank you. We're moving so quickly. Yes, I support the comments made. As I said to Councillor Piggott, it's an attempt to, all these feasibility studies are going to cost a huge amount of money. Up to $75,000. And I think we need to take a deep breath, a pause, refocus, and I'd like to look at the criteria and what we can do in a more considered way to focus this issue and yes, consider it. So that's just my comment.
Take a hand down, please, Councillor Davey. Right, I don't see any further hands, so I will go back to Councillor Piggott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Hughes. You weren't the only one actually to say that I didn't quite explain what I was doing quite well enough. My view is that we...
just Madam Mayor, I've just got to point out, sorry, Councillor Piggott, there's a point of order raised by Councillor Cornish that Councillor Davey has already spoken on this.
That's what I wondered too, and unfortunately, I hadn't written it down. Anyway, it's too late now.
So I think we'll just, my advice is note that. Yes. and move on, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Look, I feel what I was trying to do was actually get some council agreement around the key things we would like in a wheel park, and then put it back to administration to go away and really come back with, well, I feel 2 locations that would best fit those criteria. So that was really where it wasn't 2 feasibility studies. It was administration gaining outside advice to come back based on what we're after. What's happening at the moment in Kensington Gardens Reserve is that there's let's put one in Kensington Gardens Reserve. The local residents have reacted to all sorts of places where it might be, all sorts of sizes it might be, none of which may come to pass. They some of them might, but at the moment it's that uncertainty as well that's not playing well. So that was my intention. It is late. I accept that, Councillor Turnbull. I'd like to think it's a little bit more than a thought bubble. It's really trying to get us through to the other side. I feel that all the feasibility studies will set loose, similar to what the pre-Christmas motion set loose at Kensington Gardens Reserve. And that is local residents in fear of the unknown more than anything. And I don't feel that's positive to the overall objective, which I feel council has. It's not necessarily one I share, but it was to actually get a wheel park in the city of Burnside. So it's a different approach completely. It's actually, I don't think, dissimilar. It was certainly available to us when we did the workshop, but of course the motion in regard to Kensington Gardens Reserve sort of usurped that. I think that is the way to go. We need to be far more specific about what we want and then ask administration where the best place is to put it. Perhaps not just one. That may be a bit tough on administration, but and then we take it from there, I feel. So basically, to bring it forward, if we were of a mind as a council to do it this way, it actually makes the other, except for the rescission motion, the others irrelevant, because obviously we wouldn't do feasibility studies, and so it's sort of perhaps saving us a bit of time. So that's why I feel it's a good way to go, and I do appreciate it's unusual.
Madam Mayor, sorry.
Yes, I see the point of order. Mr. Cowley, would you read the motion, please? Because it isn't up on the screen.
Yeah, no, Madam Mayor, I'll read it to you now.
The motion we're debating is purely whether we do it first.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Sorry.
Councillor Hench, can you put your hand down, please?
So, Madam Mayor, are you asking me to read the motion that we'd like to bring forward, or the motion we'd
No. I've just got a point of order from Councillor Cornish, Regulation 6.1. CEO read the motion. You have read the motion. And the motion is those who wish to support that motion, please raise your hands. 5, 6. Oh, here we go again. 7. Okay. So we have, and those against? That must be 5. Right. So the motion was passed 7-5. So we now move then directly to Councillor Piggott's motion.
Could we have the motion up so that it's actually on the...
Now that we've moved that, the motion will come up on the screen.
Yes. Right, Councillor Piggott. Is it as it stands, or have you made some changes?
Just unmute yourself.
Unmute, please.
Sorry. There is an additional line. Right, and talking to that, albeit I've sort of already have slightly talked to that. Look, the process, as I said, I feel the process of feasibility studies spends a lot of resource, and I think probably caused quite a lot of upset with various stakeholders around each of the 5 that are in play tonight. And we have seen that at Kensington Gardens Reserve. And part of it is out of the fact that they don't know quite where on the reserve it would be, how big it would be, and that feeds into local residents being activated, perhaps needlessly, in opposition to the wheel park. So what this seeks to do is actually go another path. It is to establish key criteria. I had a crack at it. I feel it's an opening position, and it's obviously subject to debate, amendment, variation, whatever, which is what we do. But what it does do is...
Madam Mayor, sorry to interrupt, Councillor Piggott. I have another point of order from Councillor Jones. Councillor Jones, do you wish to just talk to your point of order?
My understanding, CEO and Mayor, is that we agreed that in our latest regulations, you have to move the motion of on notice that you submitted. If you want to change it, it has to be through an amendment.
Oh.
Mr. Cooper, please. And while that's happening, can I just suggest that since you've added that additional one, it should be 1, and then A, B, C, D, etc. And the second one is 2. And also I put an apostrophe between the L and the S on councils. The last line.
Thank you. Yes, that would improve it.
I'll just make it perfect.
Make it perfect. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
As it's written. I am not trying to suggest any vote in any direction.
No, fair enough.
Through the Mayor, if it is a major amendment, then the new motion on notice, it basically needs to be amended. We can't change it through the mover. It can only be changed through debate as an amendment. So it really depends whether the change is a major one or not.
What does the governance consider? Is that a major change? I mean, it's bordering on.
Through the Mayor, 1 second. Thank you.
Whilst we're waiting, if someone might want to consider moving that as amendment, if that is what is necessary to be done.
You always just move it as a motion without notice.
Through the Mayor, it is a substantial addition, so it will have to go through as an amendment. Yeah.
Right. So is there someone who wishes to, we've actually haven't got a seconder for the original motion first. So we need to delete the point 2.
Can someone explain, please, the difference between what's written in our agenda?
Well, there's the difference right now.
Where? How do you see it?
Well, it doesn't have the second clause to it anymore, because the second clause has governance advice is that is a major departure from the original motion. So if anyone, we need a seconder for this first, and then we would need to move an amendment. Do I have a seconder for this? Councillor Lemon.
I can't see the difference. Sorry.
Please unmute. Councillor Davey, don't interrupt, please. Councillor Lemon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very happy to second this, and particularly because it doesn't have the amendment. Can you hear me?
Point of order. Councillor Piggott was in the middle of speaking. Then there was a point of order from Councillor Jones, and then Helga Lemon can reserve her right if she wants to. So doesn't Councillor Piggott still have the call?
Governance, please. I don't believe so, but I'll wait and see.
No, it's his motion.
Madam Mayor, I was mid speaking to a previous motion, which has now been pulled back.
Oh yes, so you now need to.
If I could have a go at the,
apologies, of course.
Yeah.
Councillor Davis, could you take your hand down, please? Thank you.
The change in the motion actually tried to move this forward. What's happening is this whole process is being bogged down by things coming in from all sorts of directions. So it's disappointing. I accept the ruling. It's probably right, but it is one of the reasons why local government struggles, I think, to move forward often. Sticking to the original one, what I was looking to do, and I think we have not really worked out exactly what we want in a wheel park. And this was, I raised this to try and clarify that in council's mind, and where we could agree as to where the wheel park that we want, what it's going to do as a minimum, and the process. So that's basically what I've done. I picked up the combination of the reports that we've had since 2017, actually, I think.
1 minute to go.
And tried to get the key features of what I think from reports and our debates and workshops, so that can at least inform whatever process we do next in regard to the wheel park. So I seek your debate of this, not necessarily support. I feel we should get something out the other end that as a council we do accept, and that may not be as the 6 points written there, or it might be. Thank you.
Mr. Spearman is deliberately removing hands until I give an instruction. So could you please put your hand down, Councillor Davey?
No, I think Councillor Davey wishes to speak, Madam Mayor.
Do you wish to set? But I want to know, give people a chance to ask if they wish to second it. Is that what you're trying to do?
Councillor Lemon already has, I thought.
No, she has not. That's why I need your hand to go down. So I'm seeking a seconder for the motion that Councillor Piggott has just spoken to. Councillor Lemon.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to second this motion, and I'm particularly happy that it doesn't have the second bit, the last bit in it, because I think that this needs to come back to count. Should this get up and we have these criteria that go off and have some preliminary drawings done, it should really come back to us for us to decide where it could potentially go. That's where a feasibility study starts then. We shouldn't be asking administration to make that decision. We find it hard to make that decision ourselves. It has to be this council. But what I'd actually change, if we're of a mind to change things, I'd actually at item 2 say include no more than 1,000 square metres rather than no less, because I think that we need to be clear about minimum and maximum. So no more than 1,000 square metres, I'd say. But apart from that, I think this is good. Most of the people are really, really concerned about how much green space is going to get lost, whether there are tennis courts that are going to get lost, if there are trees that are going to get knocked down. And doing this, and even if you know, a mud map of what it might look like is going to allay a lot of those fears. And I really think that we owe it to the residents that are so nervous and anxious about this to come up with some sort of, well, this is what it might look like, so that they don't feel as anxious, so that they're a lot clearer about what they're likely to get. So I'm very happy to support this motion.
Okay, Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment and add an additional point at the first one to become a new one, and then the rest consequence. And that point is consider environmental aspects of the proposed site.
Not there, minute taker. I think what Councillor Davey means is that that's the only clause that exists at the moment. So it would, I think she wants it to be at point 1 and everything else moved down. So there'll be 7 points. Is that what you mean, Councillor Davey?
Yes. So consider environmental aspects of the proposed site, including effect on trees, open space. I'll leave it at that. And in speaking to that, I thank Councillor Piggott for his initiative in this regard. I think we have got bogged down in locations, but my concern is that our criteria are incredibly dated. The criteria we've been using are 5 years old. We haven't actually considered climate change and the climate change policy we now have. We haven't considered our new strategic plan. We have new environmental imperatives, new demands on our open space. So I think it's key that we really consider the environmental options and the full scope of how and where any wheel park location might be considered. I also have a concern that we should be using, and I would like to see us use an external consultant for this process. I think our staff have spent so much time and effort and have been terrific. But I think and I don't mean this in any negative way, but I think they're too close to it. And I think we need some objective eyes and new eyes looking at it. So that would be my request. Thank you.
Then I seek a seconder to the amendment. Councillor Carbone, are you seconding the amendment? Then take your hand down, please. Right, is there anyone who's seconding this amendment? I don't see any hands, so then the motion does not continue. Now we go back to the original, and that's Councillor Hughes, you are next. So number 1 needs to be removed, Bronnie. And it goes back to the original. Right, okay. Now, Councillor Hughes, were you speaking?
I'd like to move an amendment to, or if the mover and seconder would agree, to move Part B to read include no less than 500 square metres to set a minimum. Also happy if Councillor Lemon would support it if it was between 500 to 1,000, if that would move it without it being an amendment. I'm happy to talk to it if...
Well, Councillor Piggott and Lemon, the suggestion is that include no less than 500 and no more than 1,000.
Yes, I'm happy with that.
Yes,
would you be happy with that, Councillor Piggott?
Yes,
as well?
I would.
All right, then we won't use it. It won't be an amendment. We've just changed that, and you can now speak to that.
Thank you.
Look,
I was reluctant to have supported this with Councillor Piggott's addition that he sent through. So similar to Councillor Lemon, not unhappy with this. I think it is important for us to have criteria. I think a lot of us have criteria in the back of our minds around what we see this, but this really sets it out in paper. And I think this will put us in a good position if we do move forward with feasibility studies, not knowing what's, I guess, not preempting what's going to happen later on tonight, is that this criteria can then be considered around those sites. And it might be that a site that we've chosen actually becomes not feasible because of some of the criteria here, which I think is actually not that's an outcome in itself. So I think putting these down on paper shows the community the direction that we want to head as a council. It also sets criteria for staff to assess and look at these options in the next step. So I'm certainly happy to support this as it stands now with that small tweak around Part B, because I think that actually that gives us some flexibility. I think if we had 1,000 square metres, we would struggle to find anything that would fit in the city of Burnside. So I think this is a reasonable compromise. I think Part C could be perhaps limiting around some of the locations, but I'm happy to see where that falls out. I think we should be putting it in an area with passive surveillance. And I do think Part C will cover off on that. So happy to support that without the addition that Councillor Piggott was proposing anyway. So thank you.
Hi, Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to apologise to Councillor Piggott for saying it was a thought bubble, but I'm glad you've got rid of that thought bubble because it's much more approachable like it is without that. I have a bit of an issue with Part A, with equipment suitable for users from the age of 3 and not beyond the age of 18. Do we have someone saying, excuse me, show me your birth certificate, you're 19, go away? Is there any way of making that more general than saying by the age of 18? I'm trying to think of wording, but I'm really a bit stuck with that. So if somebody could help me out. Other than that, I would agree with it, but I really don't like Part A. Sorry, Mr. Councillor Piggott. Thank you.
So Councillor Piggott can comment on that when he sums up. Now, Councillor Davis, you keep on onning and then disappearing, but you're not there at the moment. So Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A question through the Mayor for the administration, please. Will we be considering off-street parking if this motion is... sorry, what was that? I didn't...
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right. Will we be considering off-street parking for a wheel park as a criteria? Because the project requirements, this looks like project requirements list to me. That could be quite a justifiable project requirement, possibly because I interviewed some BMX bike riders on the weekend at Ridge Park, and they were young men, certainly over 18, and they drove their car, said to had to park in a side street, wheeled their BMX specialised bikes to Ridge Park to play, and their big booming, sound box. I got them here. It's very noisy. So yes, that was my question. Does this motion mean a wheel park will not consider off-street parking? Thank you.
Through Madam Mayor, I'm happy to answer that question. The short answer is yes. Any location, we will have to have regard for parking and understand the existing needs and what any pressures that a wheel park facility may place on the resultant location.
I ask a follow-up question just to clarify this. Does the administration, oh, sorry, before I start, can I ask a clarifying question, please?
Yeah, yes, subsequent questions, fine.
Thank you.
I would have stopped you otherwise.
Thank you. Does the administration regard this as a start to the project requirements? Because the project requirements and the project management framework would require the administration to engage with all the pertinent stakeholders in such an exercise, being users, residents, etc.
Through Madam Mayor, I think where we're at in this process, I think this is a prudent step, and whatever the parameters are that council decide, the administration are happy to implement.
Councillor Hubel.
Thank you, Your Worship. Look, I was reading this motion, and it was refreshing in the sense that it's a paradigm shift in the way that we're looking at this issue. We've so far been looking for a location and then thinking about what might we put in that location. Whereas now we are, I guess, looking to think about what it is we want and then find out where we're going to put it. So it's quite a different look. It's a change of tack in looking at this. And I think this sort of approach is the right one to take. And I really feel strongly that it will, one of the big arguments for these feasibility studies that we've done has been we need to let people know what it is we're talking about so they can make a decision on it and be informed. And I think coming up with a decision from the chamber, this is what we want, now where we're going to put it, I think is going to allay a lot of fears. However, I feel that the motion, the way it's put forward tonight, is at odds with that approach. I think in the principle of fairly going away and deciding what we want and looking at things that are available and deciding what sort of facility we want, I think is compromised by this motion because it's so, I feel, limiting. So I think that the motion itself contradicts its intent, which is a bit unfortunate the way it's listed, but maybe we can head forward. So I'm not going to support this motion as it stands tonight. So for example, I don't know that the park that is best for Burnside is limited to people under 18. I don't know that I don't know that a park bigger than 1,000 square meters is what we want. I don't know that not locking it up overnight is really, really important. So I'm not prepared to make the call on those aspects, given that we are trying to go away and look at the best model. I think this motion restricts us in making a fully informed, balanced decision.
Councillor Carbone.
Thank you, Your Worship. A question to the CEO. If this motion was to get up, and let's say hypothetically, you and your staff find the absolute best spot that ticks every single box, except the one dealing with, say, arterial roads and sub-arterial roads and so forth, would you not bring it to council, or would you bring it back to council to say, look, I understand you moved this motion, here's something that meets almost all the criteria except one? What would happen in that scenario, for example?
Through Madam Mayor, just assume in your scenario that there was no other location that met all of them, it would behove me to present that option to council, noting that it didn't comply with one component. obviously the hope here is that there are some sites that can match all those criteria. But if there was no other options, I would present it to council noting the deficiency.
Your worship, am I able to make the second small amendment and hoping it'll just be accepted?
Yes.
Could I please change in the first paragraph? Could I please change the word must? I'll just say it before you copy and paste. Change the word must to something like would ideally.
Or should. I don't know. Councillor Piggott and Councillor Lemon, it's up to you.
The word must is a very strong word. And I think in this environment, something like should or ideally or if possible.
Well, whilst the mover and seconder are considering it, I think you have had a good answer from the CEO with regard to that, but I do understand the position that you're in. So I'll leave it to Councillor Piggott and Councillor Lemon to make the decision.
Where's the must?
Right at the end of the second line.
There's a point of order.
Point of order. Has the previous amendment been moved and seconded? Yes.
Agree to be considered? Oh, must, yes. No,
Yeah.
I want the must to stay.
Must. Councillor Piggott, you're the mover.
Game over if the seconder hasn't supported it.
Okay, that's fine. All right. So I think the CEO has taken this point on board. I have the same potential question about the last one of overnight and fencing. And if there's a question I was going to ask when Councillor Carbone asked his. All right, Councillor Turnbull, you have a question?
Question. Yes, I have a question. Thank you, Mayor. If this motion is to get up, would Councillor Piggott put a time limit on this to be done? Otherwise, our residents will think we are using delaying tactics again.
Can't answer that now, but he may consider in his summing up. I have a question from Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is along those lines, and also what is the process now? What does Councillor Piggott intend if this motion gets up? Do we still consider and discuss our motions, the rest of the motions that have been put up tonight about the skate park, wheel parks locations, or will this come back to council before we consider any further development? Thank you. That's my question.
Mr. Cowley, I'm of the understanding that we continue on with the rest of the motions, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe at this stage you would, but obviously in conducting the feasibility studies, we would have to have regard for the criteria if this motion is successful.
Yeah, that's the way I interpret it too.
Because at this point, it gives no greater guidance around the feasibilities that are already on the table.
Right. Councillor Henschke, you wish to debate now or further questions?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A further question. I would like to ask the administration to clarify if this motion was carried, where in the project management process are we sitting in the project management framework? Are we right at the beginning of the process of the project management framework? Are we going to be like Councillor Davies said, are we going to be asking for future development funds to do this work? I don't know what the cost for this is. Are we going to be approving funds to do something now, or is it coming out of existing budgets? What this is all about? Thank you.
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, as far as I understand it, the council has determined the process they wanted to take in this matter. So as it stands, we've been asked to conduct a feasibility study on Kensington Gardens Reserve. We have a rescission motion that is in play, so I've ceased that. So the steps from here, in my understanding, is that it would be a feasibility study would be conducted. If the motion that's before us right now gets up, it would have regard for those aspects. And then the result of that would be presented back to council for them to determine, ideally, to proceed to community consultation. But at some point in their council then have to determine what budget it allocated. The steps that we are contemplating this evening aren't asking council to allocate any budget at this point in time, because we don't have enough facts to make those decisions.
Councillor Davis.
What this motion does is simply put a bigger framework in terms of what the feasibility study comes back and looks like. So at the moment, the feasibility studies go out and they say to the administration, do whatever you want. And when we asked the administration at the last meeting, would they consider essentially, could this skate park be a Tony Hawk professional level skate park? It could. All right. So at the moment, there is no or limiting criteria. What Councillor Piggott's asking to do here is to say that the target age group is between 3 to 18 years. That is not something that's difficult to determine. All right. I think that's quite easy to agree with. Or alternatively, do you want to build a premier Olympic size skate park? And it is actually your job to do that. It's not the administration, it's not anybody else's. It's actually your job to consider what kind of skate park and what kind of facility this will be. And limiting for 3 to 18 is very reasonable. We've previously discussed 500 to 1,000 square meters. 500 is sufficient to give you something decent, and 1,000 meters is quite decent. Anything bigger than that is going to be greater than 4 or 5 tennis courts, which to my mind is too big. And so I'm happy to put that limit on it. But equally, you don't want it just a single half pipe. Location next to a road is very important, right? It's very simple, I think, and easy for councillors to agree to 1C. Of course, you want it near to a road, and of course, you want it near to public transport. That's obviously something that the administration will consider and have a consideration upon. 1D, does anyone really have a problem with appropriate shade and landscaping being one of the feasibility criteria that we're actually telling the council, the administration to go and look at when they prepare this feasibility? Does anyone here disagree with that it should be ideally close to toilet facilities? And I'm sure if it's not, the administration can come back and say, well, potentially you could build one as well. And I think it's fairly easy to say that trying to avoid locking it overnight and fencing it, particularly if it's going to be put into a reserve, is always something that's desirable. All right. So all of these criteria are very easy to agree with. You should actually know what you're voting on. And when you say, I want a feasibility study, what we should be doing as a council is trying to limit that and understand what that looks like. And that's what this motion does. And that's why you should support it. It's not difficult to support.
Councillor Jones. I was just having a conversation with Matt about, and Mr. Cooper, sometimes it's hard to hear your giving them 1 minute notice. Is there something that could ping or ding or that you could use? Because it's actually quite hard to sometimes pick up your voice when you're giving that 1 minute warning. So if you could consider that. Councillor Jones, now you can speak.
I would like to move an amendment, if I may.
I'm going to have any more. All right.
So at the end of the first sentence, delete must and put should. Okay. Sorry. Should, and then in C, after be located, if you could insert the words be located in a reserve.
Okay, I'll see just a second.
Haven't we already been through the whole amendment thing?
That is an amendment. Before it was suggested a change to the wording. This is now a formal amendment, and I need Councillor Henschke to put your hand down for a minute, please, because I'm seeking a seconder for the amendment.
We've already had 2 amendments. You can't amend it. We've only
had 1 amendment.
No, you already denied somebody else's amendment because you already had 2 before that. This is the fourth amendment.
No, there's only been one amendment. The others were just changing, altering the wording.
No, Councillor Davey moved an amendment, and that lapsed for want of a seconder.
I'm not going, excuse me, Councillor Davis, I'm not going to argue with you. I will seek an excuse me, do not argue with me. I will seek an adjudication from Mr. Cooper.
Through the Mayor, we've had one amendment and one variation, and this is the second and last amendment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Could I just ask the question that the inclusion of a reserve new piece of business is a valid amendment? Could I have a ruling on that? I feel it changes quite significantly what I was looking to achieve.
Could you get a decision on that, please, Mr. CEO or Mr. Cooper?
I'll refer to Mr. Cooper.
Yeah.
I think
thank
there's an
you,
argument from us going, it should actually changes it quite dramatically as well.
Yes, it does.
Yes, through the Mayor, I agree. It does actually change the motion significantly, so shouldn't be
an amendment.
Amendment, yeah.
Okay, so the attempt of the amendment is lost or was lapsed. Okay, so now I will go back to Councillor Henschke. You did have your hand up before, and I asked you to lower it to find out whether we had a seconder. So are you willing to speak? You have asked a number of questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not right now, thank you.
Right. Then I don't have any hands up at the moment. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Otherwise, you miss your opportunity. Councillor Henschke.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just thought I was going to wait, wanted to hear more of the debate. Thank you. So I'll speak briefly. It is concerning. I heard Councillor Hubel note that we are possibly constraining ourselves early in the project design process with project requirements which shape the way forward. I acknowledge what Councillor Davis has said about giving some criteria to the administration. However, there is a fundamental criteria that is missing in this long list, and it should be actually the first thing on the list, or maybe the second, and that is that the setback distance from a home, a ratepayer, a resident, is such that it doesn't affect them, or a setback distance of a minimum of 50 metres, 100 metres, 20 metres. What is it? So we're doing a lot of project requirement stuff on the run tonight. I'm pretty uncomfortable about this. I do get, that we want to move forward, but I think we could perhaps be more general and high level here. Clearly the need of the residents is not entirely here. It sounds like the administration, because I've asked a few questions of the CEO, will requirements like parking be considered? And he said, oh, yes, of course, that will be considered. So therefore, that's the logic to me would be, yes, of course, the needs of the residents will be considered. It is really interesting when you go to a park like Ridge Park, it's actually a really small footprint. It's actually less than 500 square metres. By the looks of it, I'm just judging that. The users,
1 minute to go.
Yep, the users on that day were two 20-year-olds plus. They had their boombox with them. I stood at the fence of a home. It was loud and crystal clear. I could hear every word from that music boombox, and tell you what, some of the words from the lyrics of those songs wasn't exactly what your children want to hear. But they were having a great time. It was on an arterial. They didn't mind it at all. I said, do you want this in a park, sit back under the shades, it's nice and quiet and peaceful? Boy said, no, it didn't matter to them at all. Parking was very important, and certainly a skate park in the east would be really handy because the other ones are up north, there's one or two on this side of town. So look, it seems like the administration, apply common sense here if this motion's carried. Include no less than 500, no more than 1,000 square metres, and the common sense is that if we could have a 300 or 350 square metre wheel park, that'll be okay. So thank you.
Councillor Dawes, I'm just all being aware of the time. We have an awful lot to get through tonight.
Yes, I agree. Thank you, Mayor. Look, I'm very praiseworthy of what Councillor Hubel said. I think he was spot on. Let us not be the experts. Now, there are two others. I think Councillor Hensky's already mentioned one was proximity to residents. The other one was the noise factor, which the deputy mentioned. That doesn't appear in here either. I wish it was should, but we can't do that. But look, let us go to the experts and they'll come back to us. Look, we don't know about wheel parks. We've already admitted that. So here we are, we're trying to be experts, but we haven't got everything in there. So I'd have to vote against this on this occasion.
Right, Councillor Piggott, I think I need to get back to you.
Thank you. Yep. Well, having had my thought bubble burst, I still feel, look, I actually agree with Councillor Hubel as well. But the fact is, we had a workshop in early December, which probably would have progressed to us sitting down. And it's not that we're experts. It's the fact of, we are the keepers of the important things. And it's probably not an exhaustive list. It probably isn't. But it was an attempt really to just sort of make it a little bit more clear to our community what we were talking about. We had a debate last time about how old a youth person was, and it got to be the age of 30. The criteria or the reason for doing this was really to address that sort of under 16. In fact, I'd have probably put 16 if it was up to me, but I was keen not to limit it too far. It doesn't mean if you're 19, you're going to get booted off it. It's just that in terms of choice of equipment, we don't end up with a ridge park, which is highly difficult and really it's probably more of an adult arrangement than a kid arrangement. And I think all of them were actually not meant to be limiting. I would be fairly confident that if we sat down and did this as we should have as a group perhaps, and then came back to debate it, most if not all of those things. In fact, I overplayed it on the square meters. I actually made it bigger than I'm happy with where we've landed. But if you look at it, I don't think there's anything there that's particularly limiting. With all of we've had, it is good, I think, we do want something that is largely for kids. We do need it a decent size, but not too big. We do, I think, need it on an arterial or subarterial road. We do need public transport. It gives us passive surveillance. It probably resolves a lot, perhaps not all, but the resident issue in regard to noise. Level of shade and landscaping, probably give me that one. Toilet facilities.
1 minute to go.
And the last one, I feel it would be. Look, I speak as I've been talking against Wheel Park, but the council does feel like it needs to do it, and that's fine. But I think if we actually had to put a wheel park in and then had to put a fence around it, I think that would be a loss. So, I felt actually they were pretty generic, actually didn't limit the process too much. And I think it would be worthwhile if we do go ahead with feasibility studies, that those feasibility studies did have something to line up against. And that's what this would do if we voted up. In terms of timing, Councillor Turnbull, this actually asks a council to do nothing. There's no timing to bring anything back. What it does do, though, is whatever they do next on our request goes against these benchmarks, all of which I think are very good and not limiting. I seek your support.
I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Right, the vote was 8-4. Why is Councillor Davies' hand up there now? Right, okay. She's still talking. I don't understand what's going on. So now we move on to the motion was carried. And now we move to 9.2. Councillor Jones, go for it.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, can I just interject for 2 seconds?
Yes.
Can I have the number of the vote, please?
I said it was 8-4.
I didn't hear you, so thank you.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I just want to remind Council that item 15.1 is a matter that we must consider this evening.
Yes.
I just want to make sure we don't lose sight of that tonight.
That's what I was hinting at earlier. All right, Councillor Jones, go for it.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, colleagues. I will try and be brief. At our last, at our special meeting where we discussed the Kensington Gardens Reserve skate park, I got the very clear impression that people wanted us to consider more than one location. So at the workshop we had, the council administration proposed 4 locations that they thought were the most suitable. So KGR we know about, Kensington Park Reserve, the new Glenside Reserve, and Penfold Park. I thought we should go with 2. I mean, going with 4 is too much, and I think Kensington Park Reserve is the best one. I actually note, I think it meets all the criteria that have just been voted on as must-haves for a skate park, which I think is a good result. I have to say, I think it's a good location. I think you could put it certainly on the north side, quite a long way from residents, which seems to be the thing that upsets people the most. That would be a definite positive. Personally, I think Penfold Park is going to be very, very difficult, given its long history of antisocial behaviour. I think if we suggest we're going to have a skate park there, people are going to go bananas. So I think that should be avoided. I also think Glenside Reserve is a non-starter. It is on the edge of the city. It doesn't really have the facilities, complementary facilities that some of the other reserves have. It's quite small. It's got a little playground. And perhaps most importantly, we
1 minute to go.
Council administration said to the developers, who didn't have to give that reserve to us for another 8 to 10 years, handed over to us on this understanding that we won't put a skate park in it. So it's a bit hard, to my mind, for us to now put a skate park in it. In 10 years' time, yes. So so that's why I think Kensington Park's the one to go for as our second option that people seem keen on. And I think that's what we should go for. And then we should just quickly vote against all the others and we can all have an early minute.
Councillor Hubel, you wish to second, I'm assuming.
Yes, Your Worship. Look, I am in support of looking at feasibility studies. I've voted for them in the past and very happy to support this one. Only given the Chamber was happy with the outlines for any feasibility studies, I'd be confident that any motion looking for a feasibility study somewhere would also be supported. So yeah, I think we need to get on with our evening though.
Right, Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. I have a question, if I may, of administration. Yes?
Yes, of course. Just go ahead. Of course, I have to request that.
Can you confirm what Councillor Jones just said, that the Glenunga Basin was handed over to us on the proviso we weren't going to put a skate park in it? Because that is the very first I've heard about it.
Through Madam Mayor, I'm happy to take that one. Whilst I wasn't in the meeting, the developer did take the opportunity to call me and shared that he had had a conversation. I don't recall him saying specifically about a skate park, but his language was he was under no obligation to give us the reserve so soon. And I certainly came away with the impression that if he had been aware of this conversation, he would not have transferred it across so early.
Can I have a supplementary question to that, please?
Yes. Yes.
Can you tell me when that conversation took place?
Oh, you're going to test my memory.
Well, you know, a general, was it this year?
Oh, certainly. It was within the last, I'm going to say the last 4 weeks. Councillor Jones, do you remember the rough time of the meeting? Because he called me that evening after your meeting. Three or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, sorry, I met with the developer. It would have been early January, but the developers must have had the meeting with the council staff before that, because they handed over the reserve to us in October.
Yeah, certainly. But with reference to Councillor Lemon's question, so say 3 to 4 weeks, Councillor Lemon.
Thank you.
Do you wish to speak now, Councillor Lemon? Do you wish to speak now, Councillor Lemon?
No, thank you.
Okay, take your hand down then, please. Okay, Councillor Carbone, you're next.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think this is a very worthwhile exercise. We all know the matrix that has been referred to many, many times over the past 3 years, and Kensington Park was always in that top quadrant. Lots of green and lots of ticks. Now, my personal view was that Kensington Gardens had more ticks, but Kensington Park certainly had a lot. So this is a very close contender, and I think it's one that we really need to give it some consideration for a future Will Park. And all I can virtually beg elected members moving forward is, if this motion gets up, okay, and I certainly hope it does, and if anyone receives any phone calls from residents near Kensington Park questioning this feasibility study, please just ask them to wait for the concept drawings. Everything will be clear. We've got old criteria, which is what we've got here now. We've got new criteria, which will be implemented. And the motion itself talks about a proposed concept design and costs. So there really is no reason for anyone to have a hissy fit. Just chill. It is a good location. It does meet most of the criteria. Let's just give it a shot. Let's just give it a chance and let the experts, not us, the experts, run their eye over the land and come back to us with what could or couldn't work. With regards to the Glenside Reserve, Glenside Basin, whatever term you want to use, what Councillor Jones said is true. It's well documented, and it's been a little cheeky of us to pursue anything in that area, because the land was handed back on good faith that the master plan that's current would be implemented. If the developer has said to myself, had they known there was any risk of a change to that master plan, they never would have handed it back. So we took it from them. They gave it to us on good faith. So it would be a massive blow to the relationship between us and the largest residential development in Burnside's history for us to go back on that word. But that's for another motion. Kensington Park meets all the criteria. We've got new criteria moving forward. Let's give it a shot.
Councillor Henschke.
Madam Mayor, question for the administration. What is the budget for this feasibility study, and presumably if the other Will Park locations also get a feasibility study, what's our budget for each one of them? Thank you.
Through Madam Mayor, we're allocating approximately $15,000 for feasibility study. And it will be a multiple of 15 for any additional studies.
Councillor Davis.
So the question I'd like to ask the administration, through Your Worship, regarding the statements of Councillor Carbone, where are the documents saying that or supporting this? Do we have any verification, or are we just supposed to trust him? And then And what is actually stopping us? Is there any legal prohibition from us doing a feasibility study into that area?
Mr. Cowley, I think that's yours.
Oh, sorry, Madam Mayor. I wasn't sure the question was posed to. Through Madam Mayor, my understanding is, as it stands, there is no legal impediment. Having said that, the developer's made it clear that he will challenge the concept, whatever that means. But at this stage, there's no legal impediment that I'm aware, apart from being aware of the developer's dissatisfaction with the concept.
But as far as you are concerned, Councillor Davis alluded to potential untruths. What Councillor Carbone and Councillor Jones both said are correct.
No.
I'm asking the CEO, not you, Councillor Davis.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I'm sort of confused. I may need Councillor Davis just to clarify.
Councillor Carbone and Councillor Hubel are intimating that there is some contract or obligation or something.
But yeah, relevance, Councillor Cornish, thank you. Relevance to debate, Glenside's not mentioned in the motion. I take that on board. Let's move on. So, Councillor Davey, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't support this motion. I don't believe this is a realistic proposition to pursue in this park. I remind everybody that Kensington Park Oval Reserve did not rate following the original desktop audit of proposed sites 3 years ago in 2019, when community consultation was undertaken. 4 sites were then considered. They were JB Ware, Mellow Reserve, Kensington Gardens Reserve and Penfold Park. And they were all considered suitable and chosen for further evaluation based on input. The Kensington Park was activated as a possible wheel park location only in April this year, when a report came to council to determine the locations for rotation of the pump track around Burnside. And out of the blue...
Madam Mayor, sorry, we do have a point of order.
Yes, it was last year, not this year. And wait a minute, Councillor Davis referred to me erroneously, commented on this issue. It was totally unnecessary, but I don't think that actually comes down as a point of order, but it certainly does not take note of the regulations in relation to conduct by elected members in their communication with each other.
What are we talking about?
Jane, Councillor Davey, I apologise for the interruption, but a point of order was called. Now, can you please continue?
Thank you. I'll start again. This location was activated.
Don't start again, please, Councillor Davey.
No, the paragraph that I was.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
This location was activated as a possible wheel park location in April 2021, when a report came to council to determine the locations for rotation of the pump track around Burnside. And out of the blue, Newland Reserve and Kensington Park Reserve were nominated as possible locations for a wheel park for feasibility studies. There has been no consultations with residents of this area, as in the previous Kensington Gardens Reserve experience. The historic Kensington Park Oval site was previously Olympic sports field and was redeveloped in 1999-2000. As I advised everybody a couple of weeks ago when I sent them the plans for that site and the design, and it showed how it was developed and all the work that went into it in partnership between Pembroke School and the City of Burnside. It resulted in a fully utilised site, very heavily utilised. It's got a heritage restored grandstand, an A1 rated cricket and football oval and practice nets, mixed with facilities for the community.
1 minute to go.
Play space, tennis courts, grassed areas for picnics and mounds, barbecue and biodiversity sites. There's also a running and cycling track, heavily utilised, lawns for picnics and an oval surface that's just like velvet, such that even little ones ride the trikes and scooters on it. It's also much loved by passive walkers and those who exercise their dogs. So it's a very heavily utilised area. Pembroke School leaves most of the site, as I said, and they are happy that it works very well with a good balance between school use, sporting use and community use after hours. They were very happy with the consultation around the pump track trial and did not mind the trial there. However, at the time, in discussion with the administration, Pembroke voiced their concern at a permanent wheel park as another story entirely. In my discussion with the business manager at Pembroke last, they do not support a wheel park.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Yes, muted. Fine. All right, now we are moving to Councillor Lemon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'm going back. I hope you indulge me. I'm going back because I want to establish the veracity in terms of accountability, transparency and veracity of something that Councillor Carbone said when he gave his address. He said that the Glenside Basin palaver was well documented. So my first question to the CEO is there any documentation whatsoever? He also said we cannot go back on our word.
Can we get one question at a time, please, Councillor Lemon?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Mr. Cowley.
Through Madam Mayor, just for clarification, I thought we had a point of order that we're discussing a matter that's not relevant to this motion.
Yes, reliance on debate.
This is honesty. This is honesty.
No. Let's move on, please. Have you got another question?
So that has to be a code of conduct, does it? You are forcing me into a code of conduct because somebody has potentially been dishonest.
Well,
and you're not allowing me to find out whether that's true.
No, what I'm saying is that we all received an email from the CEO with regard to Cedar Woods development. Anyway, we are moving on. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this motion? Councillor Hughes. I'm going to go to Councillor Davey. Have you got a question? Because you've already spoken. Unmute, please.
In terms of, we've just heard that there's the basin people, developers could launch litigation against us.
I'm only having a question related to this particular debate that's Kensington Park.
I have a question to the CEO. Is it not possible that any resident, well-resourced resident, could launch an objection or some sort of lawsuit against us for location of a loss of their residential amenity for location of a skate park or wheel park?
Well, they could do that for a tennis court too.
I'm asking the question of the CEO, since this has been raised as an issue that is a live issue in Glenside Basin, that they are saying is relevant to the value of their properties. Why does this differ to someone in Kensington Gardens Reserve or Kensington Park Reserve who might feel that they are severely disadvantaged and take legal action against council? Thank you.
Mr. CEO.
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, as a broad concept, the way I'm viewing all the feedback, positive and negative, that we're receiving around the actual feasibility studies or the muted feasibility studies is that every resident and ratepayer within the city of Burnside will have the opportunity to have input as part of any community consultation that they undertake. So my advice to any party that I've spoken to that's, for example, vehemently against a proposal is that they will have an opportunity to share their concerns with council, as does any resident. So that's the advice I'm giving to anyone that's approaching me. I'd like to think that it goes there before any legal action is mounted by anyone in particular. But that's what I'm encouraging people to do, should they have concerns, is wait until we go out for the formal community consultation on any proposal.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. I will speak for support of the motion. Now, Councillor Davey has raised some points that are all relevant to this site, and that I understand will all be picked up in the feasibility study, and is exactly why we need to be looking at these sites to see whether these types of facilities are feasible at these different locations. So I think getting this information, and it's exactly the same debate for Kensington Gardens Reserve, going out, doing a report, getting some information, and then bringing that back to council to make a decision to whether we want to proceed and want to go and consult our community, we need to have this information. And I think would just like to point out there have been a number of emails from people, for Kensington Gardens Reserve saying everyone's just voting to put it in someone else's ward. So I would just like to point out that I am the ward councillor for Kensington Park, and I am going to support this motion tonight because we do have a lot of people within the community who are asking for this facility. And as a council, we should be doing our due diligence and actually going and doing a study. And I think a lot of the debate that we've heard over the last few meetings misses the point that this is to go out and look at these sites, do a study and bring it back to council. We have not made a commitment to build anything. We have not made a commitment to spend any money. And this evening, we've actually set some criteria around what I guess surrounds we want to have for these facilities. So the staff may well go out and do these investigations and come back with sites that don't work. So I think adding an extra site is a great idea. If we end up adding another one or two, then all well and good as well. But I think to invest a little bit of money at this point in time to better inform us to make a decision so that we can either move forward or shut it down is the right way to go. So I will be supporting this despite the fact that it is in my ward, so that we can actually compare various sites across the city and actually make an informed decision. And that's why I'll be supporting it. Councillor Piggott.
Thank you. Well, actually, I don't think we should be doing this. As I've explained before, I feel that all we're doing is setting another group of residents active. Sounds like, based on actually very little information in terms of what it would eventually be, potentially, Councillor Davey has already seemed to have implied that Pembroke School's not happy about it, but it's hard to know what they're not happy about, really, because we don't know even what we're going to put there and where. And that's what we're doing. We are landing these things in locations without any particular information. Maybe we've got a bit more tonight from the motion, but we are doing this in the wrong direction, and this just does it again. I feel that we are lining up groups of residents against this concept when they actually don't know what the thing would look like and quite where. Again, Kensington Park's a reasonable reserve, large reserve. We're not even saying quite where that would be. So I don't see why we keep doing this. It's interesting if perhaps the residents of Kensington Park could have had a nice little meeting with Councillors Carbone and Jones. Perhaps this one would have been withdrawn as well. So it does show the point that the stakeholders in each of the areas, the way we are doing it, are frightened by it more than they should be. Kensington Gardens Reserve, more than they should be. But the fact is they are. And so they activate against the whole thing, and it makes it very hard to turn around later on, I feel. And what we're doing here is just adding more to the list, and we shouldn't do it. Thank you.
Question, Councillor Davey.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm just getting back to the issue of who will undertake a feasibility study. Are we still having staff going over them again and again, or are we likely to get an outside consultant and make an investment in someone with fresh eyes? Thanks.
Through Madam Mayor, I'm happy to answer that question.
Yes.
What I'm proposing the way forward is that we actually take a dual approach, in that we will engage with professional skate park designers and constructors, and the preliminary conversations we've had with these companies is they do provide a service where they do determine, according to their parameters, the feasibility of certain sites, and they've had extensive experience putting skate parks in obviously public locales. And then I will still be sharing our staff's insights because they are valuable and should be considered. But council will be presented with both insights to make an informed decision.
Thank you. Next is Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Mayor. Well said, Councillor Hughes. You said it beautifully. I think we need to have more comparisons for feasibility studies. And by now, a lot of the residents are learning about feasibility studies, that they're not, let's build it in your park. It's a feasibility study. And I really think that the money spent on this very contentious issue is well spent. So for $75,000, so be it. So I definitely support this motion. Thank you.
Right. I don't see any hands up, so would like to move on now to Councillor Jones summarising. No, Councillor Davis has just got his hand up.
Thank you. I think this is a great example of what not to do.
Councillor Davis, I've got you down as having already spoken. Please correct me, Mr. Cooper, if I'm wrong.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, is this a question?
No, I thought I asked a question. Remember we were talking.
That's what I'm just checking.
Remember.
Through the Mayor, one moment, I'll check with the Governance Officer.
Yeah.
It was about Carbone's motion, or Carbone's statement.
I'm trying to keep two lists, and I may have put you in the wrong one. I apologise in advance if I'm wrong. But
naughty list.
Through the Mayor, I believe Councillor Davis asked a question previously. Okay,
now it's the time to speak then.
There's a really good book that I would recommend you all read, and it's called Our Iceberg is Melting, and it's about change management, and it's about how leaders of the community should actually go about that change management to achieve an end result. What we have done is the complete opposite, I think, of what we should be doing. What we should have done is collectively gone out, and we have already created a huge amount of anxiety in our community, and no doubt there's more to come. And I think we really have gone about this completely the wrong way. We should be identifying generally what our principles are. I think the idea, so you've been elected, all of us have been elected to do a job, and that job is lead our community and make decisions. And the idea that we can just tell the administration to make all those decisions for us is hilarious. Why not just agree with every single thing that they put up there? I mean, the reason that we're here is to drive that change and to lead that change. And we haven't even had the discussion ourselves as actually what we want. And we should actually sit down.
Regulation 15.5, point of order, you are not actually debating this topic.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not. You are not debating the motion.
I'm talking about this motion, and I'm talking about the process, and I'm talking about how our community feels about this motion. How much time when the clock was paused do I have left?
Well, again, I say point of order 15.5 is rely on you debating.
I'll keep that view in mind.
Thank you.
But we have done this very poorly. And I think this motion does exactly that. And it's a continuation of that. We've created a huge amount of anxiety, and it is really for us to make these decisions, particularly about what it's going to look like. Now, I think we should actually listen to our community, and we haven't heard from what the residents of Kensington Park have said yet, but I'm quite sure that they will come back in droves opposing this. And I think it would be a real concern if any of us just disregarded their views out of hand. And I think you know exactly what they're going to say.
1 minute to go.
I think it's a real shame that we're in this situation here in our final year after we've done some pretty cool things as a council to now be driving forward with this. And we really have done this in a bad way.
Councillor Cornish.
Could I ask a question of the CEO? After a feasibility study is done, what's the next stage that we'll actually be doing?
So, through Madam Mayor, my understanding of the process is that we will then present council with either one or a number of feasibility studies, and the result of any feasibility study will either say yes, it's feasible, or no, it's not. Then the next step will be on council to decide which location they wish to go to community consultation on to actually develop a wheel park on that particular site. And my understanding is the aim is when we go out to community consultation is to have a design that the community can actually touch, see and feel to acutely understand the impact on the location we're talking about.
Councillor Jones, can you please summarise?
Very briefly, Your Worship. Colleagues, we have been discussing this for years and years, 4 years. And we know people want a wheel park. I know there are some people who don't want a wheel park. There's probably a third of people, but 2/3 do. And we owe it to them to move forward. I'm suggesting we add one more location to have 2 places we do a feasibility study that we will then be able to go out to people and say, these are the 2 best locations in the city. This is what it would look like. What do you think? And then if people come back and say, great, then I think we should pursue it. And if people come back and say, we hate it, then we say, well, sorry, guys, we are just going to be one of the very few councils who can't manage to fit a 1,000 square metre skate park in our 27,500,000 square metre council. So I do hope you will support the motion.
Those in favour? Those against? 7-5.
Yes.
7-5. So the motion is carried.
Division, Madam Mayor.
All right, okay. Division's been called. Those who are in favour, please raise your hands. The rest of you, please take your hands down. Unless you want them to be counted in a division. Right, those for Councillor Cornish, Dawes, Hughes, Carbone, Jones, Hubel, and Turnbull. Those against, Davis, those who had their hands up, could you take yours down, please? The affirmative. Right, still needing to get some more down. All right, those against were Councillor Davis, Piggott, Davey, Lemon, and Henschke. The motion was, as I've said already, motion was carried. Now, I'm cognizant of the time. We still have 3 more motions to discuss, and as you heard earlier from the CEO, we have 2 confidential motions that must be done tonight. I'm wondering if you wish to have a break now, because I don't think we can get through the next 3 motions before having a break and then inviting or asking the people online to move themselves away while we debate confidentiality. So I'm seeking suggestions.
I move that we have a break and then return to consider item 15.1 as the most important item.
I need a seconder.
I'll second it.
Councillor Davis, you're seconding. All right. So those in favour of moving that way, that is quite clear. We're going to tell everybody to leave during the break.
I speak against that.
And then they're going to come back. Yes, of course you can, Councillor Piggott. I was just clarifying that people understood what Councillor Davey had said, and that is that we tell them to go away, and then some point later, hopefully, we invite them to come back again.
Yeah, no, thank you for that clarification. I guess I was just going to do that too. It is 10 to 9.
Yes.
However, I do feel that we really should push through the wheel park related ones. Perhaps in an hour's time we make sure we do the confidential item, but it seems inappropriate really to do it now. So I wouldn't favour this motion.
Right, you're speaking against. Anyone else wishes to speak for or against?
Are you sure that no one has a conflict of interest in respect to this motion?
It's up to them to declare it. Right, I'll put the motion. Those in favour of what Councillor Davey had put up suggested, that is that we go to the confidential straight after this one, after our break. So those are in favour. Right, those against? Right, 7-5, and the motion was lost. So we'll have a 10-minute break. Confidentiality of the
motion was carried.
Sorry, the motion was carried. So that means Mr. Spearman will cut off all external access during the break. because when we come back, we're going straight into the confidential. Is that right, Mr. Spearman?
You have to come back from break, and then you have to actually move
and
while
they
in
have to move
public
to
to
it.
go into
Okay,
confidential,
fine.
and then
Yes.
at that point,
At that point, you block. Okay. So apologies to all those who are at home waiting, but we do have to deal with these other matters first.
What time would you like us back, Madam Mayor?
10 minutes from now, which is 8:63. So that's 3 minutes past 9.
9:05.
3 past 9. 3 minutes past 9. We will restart. Thank you.
You're not muted, Chris.
I am aware of that.
I just raced out here thinking I had an intruder.
Oh, what noise was coming over? What noise was coming
Because
over?
of you.
Hey, what noise was coming over?
Oh, just that somebody was walking in through the door. There was scratching and carrying on.
Oh, that's right. I don't know if anyone noticed. I was sharing the cat patting exercise with Councillor Hubel.
Oh, right. Okay.
Councillor Cornish noticed.
Hubel gave you donuts back in return. Too busy watching his own cat.
Yeah.
Everyone, this is Petunia.
Hello, Petunia.
She's 14. Has survived the rough inner western suburbs of Sydney.
Oh.
Getting lost on our relocation back to Adelaide, and made her way home, minus a toe.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right. It's 9:03, everybody, so I'm restarting the meeting. I do have a quorum. So I seek someone to move a motion that we move into confidential mode. Councillor Turnbull, you're moving that we move into confidential mode. Thank you. A seconder. Councillor Davis. They're all in favour? Against? Hang on, I'll just wait. It was carried. Oh, we haven't got the number up there anymore.
One more time.
Yeah, can you just do that again? Sorry. Those in favour of going into confidentiality? We've got a number. We've got 9, 10. Those against? We have got Councillor Lemon, are you against? No, she's taking a hand down now. All right, so we didn't have everybody who's on screen vote, but we certainly have a majority, so well and truly. So we will now move into confidential and ask you to make sure that no one else is online.
Yeah, I'll just need a moment here. I'm going to disable the live stream, and those that aren't meant to be in the room for the confidential, I'm going to be placing you on hold. So you'll be sent to a meeting room where you won't be able to see that. It's going to go back into confidence again.
Yes.
So give me a moment just to
so
get
I
a few
think
things.
while Mr. Spearman is working through the technology, you're going to have time to consider where you want to go, what direction you want to take after this when we do move back into confidence, out of confidence. But isn't the East West in confidence as well?
East West as well.
Yeah, so we need a direction on that. Councillor Dawes has suggested that we do the East West now. We're waiting for Councillor Carbone to return. Our CEO has said he's prepared to give a report on the East West, but I do need to get an indication from the rest of you when Councillor Carbone comes back, or are we allowed to do it without him?
For which?
Well, we need to give Councillor Carbone the opportunity to.
Yes, we do. That's right. He needs to be able to hear it. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Who's that?
Hey.
Councillor Hubel, he's back.
Oh, Councillor Carbone's back?
No, Councillor Hubel is.
Oh, no, that was Councillor Hubel.
I
Oh, yes,
left
we
and
can
came
hear
back and it works now. So.
Oh, it's good. Yeah, we can hear you, Councillor Hubel. Thank you.
Yeah, we have a
It's
technical
one
issue.
of the reasons why you shouldn't be putting some of these sort of chat comments up on there, but I appreciate and understand Councillor Hubel's situation.
Yeah, the challenge we have, Chris, the chat's not removable at this stage. So I can try restarting the whole meeting.
Yeah, I have to do that.
Yeah, we do. We need to.
All right, so I'm going to end the meeting for all, and I'll ask you to rejoin shortly.
Do we have to put a recording of that? Do we have to put?
So now we're in public.
Just public, okay. So we don't have to move any motions to start with.
Nope. Good to go.
Okay, so we're good to go and start again. So welcome back to those who are watching from home. During the break, we did determine that there are no other reports that are critical to be done tonight, but there are a number of motions that are still on the table, and I know that Councillor Davey would like to suggest where we move from here, so I'll listen to her first.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I'd certainly like to have my deferred business from the last meeting, my motion on notice for the Wheel Park feasibility in the Civic Centre car park considered tonight. Thank you.
I seek guidance as to the direction in which you want to take with these, because there's a feasibility rescission motion that should be considered, because that's holding up any further moving in process. There's also the one for Penfold Park, and what's the one? Right, so I need a motion from the floor, and I need some direction from you as to where you see your priorities.
Well, I'm happy to move that motion.
All right, Councillor Turnbull,
Oh.
are you seconding this? I've lost it. It's all swap sides.
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Turnbull.
I'll second that motion.
All right. Okay. So those in favour.
What are we voting? Oh.
Councillor Davey would like us to tackle the motion in relation to the feasibility study Wheel Park in the Civic Centre, which is item 9.2. She would like us to do that first. It's been seconded by Councillor Turnbull. I would just like an indication if that's the direction you would like to go in. So please raise your hand if that's what you'd like to tackle next. So Mr. Cowley.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, just a thought to share with the council. It's now close to past.
I don't think we're
going on half an hour, and obviously we want to do each item justice. There may be a thought here to defer these items to the next council meeting or extend, but I'm just conscious to start a meeting now. We may
Totally agree. I can't see it on the record of past time that we're going to get through just this one motion in that time. So maybe it would be better for us to tackle a couple of the reports and use the time.
Let's put it to the vote.
All right. That's fine. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Davey, the same applies to you. Don't you yell at me either. Okay. Right. So thank you. Those in favour of tackling this one now.
I've changed my mind.
6, 9. Okay. So there were those against.
I just changed my mind. Sorry.
That's right. It's 9 to 3. No, 8 to 4. So the motion is carried. So we deal with the City of Burnside. Councillor Davey, off you go.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just lower my hand. Thank you very much, Mayor. We've had so much discussion on this, so I'll keep it brief. However, I think it's reasonable. I'll read the motion for those who are at home, that a feasibility study for a wheel park in the City of Burnside Civic Centre. Oh, I can't read the whole thing.
I think if you just read the first bit, Councillor Davey, that's item 1, because the rest of it's pretty much the same for all the other motions. It's just this explanation about the Civic Centre that is required.
It's just I can't read it because it's partly.
Okay. Do you want me to read it for you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, it just says that council undertakes a feasibility study, including development of a concept design to enable assessment of the suitability of construction of a permanent wheel park facility in the Civic Centre car park and Fisher Street environs. So now I think you can start debating.
Thank you. And the other extra that I put in this was that the feasibility study include environmental considerations, because I think it's reasonable that a feasibility study is undertaken in this area where we've had a very successful pump track trial. Not that I want to confuse it with that, but that because we've discussed at length, many residents have raised concerns with us, and especially in the most recent wheel park proposals, the concerns about the environmental impacts of a skate park or a wheel park in Burnside. And I think considering this site, where it wouldn't mean losing beautiful old significant gum trees or significant grassed areas, and where there are all the criteria that we have already discussed, I believe, tonight, such as it's very adjacent to public transport, toilets. There is great opportunity for passive surveillance, being having lots of coming and going. And I think in terms of an assessment that is not in a park or a reserve, and that gives us an opportunity to have a feasibility study in a central location, would be really reasonable to do. So hopefully you'll support this, and we can have another feasibility study in the mix to consider along with the other ones that have already been brought forward. So thank you for your support, hopefully.
Had your hand up for a while. Sorry. Councillor Henschke, are you seconding? You need to take your mic, turn your microphone on, please, or take it off mute.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll second it, and speaking to it, support this. Makes a lot of sense, near, the Burnside Village development, bringing extra youth to the area. Shopping precinct means we might have to put some lockers there for some skaters, perhaps at the Civic Centre, put their skateboards in. Anyway, great place, parking, and then they can go read a book. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Now, this is a site I'd happily vote for a feasibility study. It's already covered in asphalt, so the green grass doesn't have to be dug up and replaced with concrete. In August 2019, with much emotion, this council voted overwhelmingly in favour of an emergency climate change motion to protect the tree canopy, grassed parklands, our land for our children and our grandchildren. One member said it was the proudest moment in her considerable time in council. And yet 2 years later, many of the same councillors want to rip up the green grass, one of the parks to be decided, and put in some concrete for a wheel park. The car park at the Civic Centre should be investigated with a feasibility study for sure. When the pump track was there, parking was managed with only the loss of one car park as quoted by administration. The whole parking area could be more efficiently designed. Is that internal road adjacent to the ballroom really necessary? Maybe a lease could be negotiated with the Burnside United Church for the use of their underutilised car park. Part of the feasibility study could incorporate the hiring of a consultant to make sure that we use our parking spaces more efficiently. So I'll definitely support this motion and thank Councillor Davey for putting this motion forward. Thank you.
Anyone opposed to this, or anyone else wish to speak? I've got no hands up there. Councillor Hughes?
I'll just speak briefly. I don't actually think it's the best location for it, but I actually think that's the whole point of doing these feasibility studies. So I will support this so that we have a means of comparison. It is a different site. It's probably not ideal. It's not where I would choose to pick it, but I think, widening where we're looking and broadening our horizon shows the community that we are willing to spend time and money and effort. I appreciate there'll be extra costs, but I'm happy to support it just to give us a mix of different potential sites for us to come back with more information. So I will support it.
Councillor Davis?
Thank you. I completely agree with Councillor Turnbull in terms of we actually have an option. We have we have so many options that actually doesn't rip up our open space. So many of us have gone to our communities advocating that we increase our open space, and we've had discussions with our communities about how valuable it is and within this council from our strategic plan. There are options within the City of Burnside Council that don't destroy our open space, that don't further decrease our amenity. And this is an excellent one. It's right next to the library, easy to get transport, very close to the Civic Centre. So, and it is already covered by asphalt, and it's very easy to get to, particularly close to schools and access to young people, and is very central to our council area. I mean, as ideally as we progress as a society as well, I think we will be looking to reduce the number of cars on our road and look at more sustainable ways of transport. And from a long-term point of view, those car parks in the City of Burnside Council will become less and less useful. So I absolutely support this, and this shows that there is a way that you don't go and rip up reserves. And this notion of what is the best location, where is the best, is quite strange. It's actually what's best for our community. It's what's best for our community, not just what you think is an objective best. And when you have so many large numbers of people on either side saying, we want one, and then you have a huge number of people saying, don't put it in a reserve, well, something like the Civic Centre car park actually makes both of those two groups happy. So what is best is what I think a majority of our residents will support, and something that won't be rescinded or undone in the next council. That's what's best. And this, I think, is a locations like this, including the depot even, are locations which our community would actually support. And when I was talking before about bringing our communities with us, these are the types of locations that I think would do that. So I'm more than happy to support this, and I really do hope this gets up.
Councillor Dawes.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I've been very quiet tonight because there have been so many people speaking.
Sorry, Councillor Dawes, can I just interrupt you for a moment? Looking at the time, we have 2.5 minutes before we have to make a decision to extend time. Okay. That is unlikely to finish your debate in time. So I need to interrupt now and seek a continuation for at least some period of time, or we will have to stop midstream.
Can I suggest 15 more minutes? 15
minutes, that's just has been suggested. Councillor Davey, are you happy to support 15 minutes extension of time? No?
Just unmute yourself, Councillor Davey.
I'd prefer 30. I think we need 30 minutes more time.
Councillor Hughes, do you wish to say something about this?
Well, I'd be happy to support either, because I think we've got to get this sorted. It's just getting to the point where it's ridiculous. I would happily support 30 minutes, but if Councillor Dawson's already moved 15, I will also say.
Can I just suggest to the end of this agenda item, provide if it goes past 11 o'clock, no. But if it finishes within 10 minutes, yes. So this is the last agenda item for the night.
So we try to the suggestion is, and I'm putting it to you all now, that we extend time to finish this particular item, provided it finishes before 5 to 11 tonight. Is that okay with everybody?
I'm actually not happy to second that, because I think we might have time if we're going to extend to 11 to cover one more. So I unfortunately won't second.
Well, you change the time.
I'm happy to second it.
You're happy to second it, Councillor Piggott?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Those in favour? We've only got 5. Sorry, no. Okay, what's the alternative?
Oh, sorry, I thought I had my hand up.
Sorry, Councillor.
The alternative is we keep going with the debate.
All right, then we will have to stop in 6 minutes.
Correct. Yeah.
All right.
Jesus.
Sorry, Councillor Dawes, but this is getting ridiculous. Okay, it's not your fault.
Sorry.
Please.
Can I move that we extend to 11? Because we haven't.
But I think that's already been voted on, and people have said no.
No, that was to.
Oh, okay, all right.
So I'm saying we just go to 11.
You move to extend to 11, seconded by Councillor Henschke.
No.
No.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, you're seconding. Okay, now put it to the vote. Those who are in favour of going till 11 o'clock. No, we've only got three people in support.
Give us time. Crikey. I can't see whether I voted or not.
If we stopped.
Jesus Christ.
Right, I did give you time, Councillor Davey. I was waiting.
Can I suggest 10:45? 10:45 for this item. That's what I'm suggesting. Do we get a 7 to agree with that? You know.
Okay, Councillor Carbone, do you support the Councillor Dawes 10:45 this item only? All right. I will now put that to the vote. And I'm giving lots of waiting time.
Is my hand up?
No.
It was, you tapped it.
It was, but you took it off.
Oh, but I've lost the.
Yeah, we've got
enough anyway, Councillor Davies, so don't panic. Right, so we're going to 10:45 on this item only.
All right, so
now, Councillor Dawes, start again.
Yeah, I was just going to support what Councillor Davis and Councillor Turnbull have said, and also Councillor Hughes. This is a comparison. I've been after comparisons right from day one, as you might remember. And we talk about a mix of potential sites. I love that term. Now, for this one, parking is going to be an issue, and we know about the pollution from the arterial road right next door, and I expect those things will be pointed out in the feasibility study. And I also agree there are other sites apart from this. Councillor Davis mentioned Depot. That's been mentioned to me, and I'm sure to other councillors as well. Now, I don't know if that's feasible or not, but let's add this one, because I believe there are a number of residents say, why aren't you looking at a site that is not a reserve? So this gives us an opportunity to look at one for a feasibility study. Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, we need a seconder. Councillor Davis, are you seconding?
No, we've got a second.
Oh, no, sorry, we've already done that. Apologies. Councillor Davey, you wish to speak?
Thank you.
No, you're asking a question because you moved the motion.
Do you want me to sum up? Or?
No. At the moment, there's only one hand up, but you have a right to ask a question. If you
no, I didn't think I had my hand up. I've got huge problems with my.
Well, could you just remove, or I'll get Matt to remove your hand. Okay. Now, there are no other hands up, so I'm assuming there is. Councillor Jones, you wish to speak.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, of course.
There was a deputation last time. I've forgotten her surname.
Doesn't matter.
Talking about the potential environmental problems and site contamination.
That was Bronte Nixon.
Bronte Nixon, thank you, Mayor. At this site, before we spend $15,000, does the administration have a view on that, and whether we're just wasting $15,000 on something that's going to come back saying, don't touch this, people?
I might refer that to Ms. Kennedy, just for insights from an engineering perspective. I suspect it's something we won't know until you do some testing, but I'll refer that to Ms. Kennedy.
Through the chair, you're right. Until we undertook some testing, we wouldn't be able to confirm that, but that would all form part of the feasibility for this particular site.
Councillor Henschke?
Yeah, question, does this mean even the playground near the cafe won't be suitable for children to play in?
Through Madam Mayor, can I just get some clarification on the context of that question?
Explain your question. Mr. Cowley can't answer it.
Sorry, I couldn't hear. Can you repeat?
Through Madam Mayor, can I just get some clarification on the context of your question? I don't understand where you're coming from.
Oh, thank you. That the planning and design code has allows certain forms of development. I don't believe that we would be able to say certain things are not allowed. At the moment we've got children's play areas in the Civic Centre outside. That might, if we start, maybe that means that we can't have a child's play area outside as well. I just wonder whether it's relevant to go down those details at this stage.
I'm sorry, I'm confused about what you're asking. We're not reviewing the playground. This is a feasibility on whether the possibility of putting a wheel park within the confines of the current car park. If there are matters of a planning nature that need to be looked at, they'll be explored as part of the feasibility study.
Any other comments or questions, please? There are no hands up at this point, so I will go back to Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just summarise briefly. Thank you for your support. This is certainly, I believe, a good option, which will certainly not decrease green treed space. And we've had a couple of impassioned speeches about that and how we do need to maintain what we've got, I believe, certainly. The feasibility can look at encouraging youth to this site. I think we do need to increase that and increase the multi-usage of the site, better usage of parking and how that's all worked through. It is a site which isn't located in a park or reserve, so we wouldn't be alienating any more green space. And while there is this issue of alleged site contamination at the Civic Centre, if it was a problem, I think we'd have some major work health and safety problems for all the people, the employees we have, the contractors, the volunteers who work at council, plus, as Councillor Henschke has raised, the children who play in the little play space, and the other adults like us all who use the site constantly. So I can't quite understand that this is being raised as an issue, but of course, or a problem, this would be discussed in a feasibility study. So I hope you'll support this. I think it increases the multi-use of the area and it's certainly another viable alternative. Thank you.
Right, all those in favour? Those against? So we've got 8. And 5. Right, so it was 8 were for and 5 against. So the motion is carried. Now, before I close the meeting, sorry.
That's 4 against.
It was 8. It was 8.
Sorry, 4 against. 4 against. Apologies. 8 and 4. Before we finish the meeting, Councillor Hughes has requested, and I'll let her move what she wishes to do now.
Yes, I would like to move that items 13.1 to 13.3 are moved to the front of the next council meeting agenda.
Could I also suggest that we start the next council meeting at 6 p.m?
I would be happy to include that in the motion, with the meeting commencing at 6 p.m.
Good idea. Can I also ask when we're likely to go back to the chamber, or is there any reason why we haven't gone back to the community centre? Because a lot of the time that we wasted tonight is because of technology.
Can we just deal with one question first? Okay. Let's deal with the motion first, and then you can ask your question.
Sure.
Also, don't you want to move items that we've been considering as well?
Well, Councillor Hughes, would you repeat what you wanted, please?
No, I was just going to move.
Point of order raised.
Now we've got a point of order. We have moved to the close of the meeting. No, 10:45.
10:45 or at the conclusion of the previous item.
No, fair enough. We have concluded them. I'm just sorry, Councillor Hughes. I'm afraid I can't accept it, which means that they go to the back of the
It says extension to 10:45 to conclude the agenda item.
Not at the conclusion.
Not at the conclusion.
Extra items.
No, the issue is that these are additional items. They are being perceived as additional items beyond the agenda ending.
Good night.
I find it also very frustrating.
Can we see clarification?
Councillor Lemon, I think you can ask your question of the CEO separately, since we can't have any further discussion. Sorry, people, I closed the meeting at 10:35.
Good night, everybody.
Just before everyone signs off, for the benefit of Councillor Lemon's question, I will have us back in person as soon as I believe it's safe to do so. And my want is to get us back in person. But I do have to have what's going on.
The Premier is saying go meet.
Yeah,
I know what he's saying, but
The Premier is also asking me to keep my children home, and
yes,
so,
you know, that doesn't suit my narrative.
I understand we'd all like to be back, and I'll do my level best managing the risk if I can.
well, Councillor Jones has declared the meeting closed, so I'm going. See ya.
Hooray.